Oh, okay. That makes you worried. Did something happen to him?
That's Marianne.
I watched the webinar for the pathways,
Oh, did you?
but then these notes are from December 8th. That was a long time ago. So now I'm looking at these Post-its and I'm like, I don't even know what my questions were anymore.
I know.
I had really good
Everybody will know
questions
he's
with
late.
arrows and everything.
I
Look
know.
at,
And sometimes you read the questions and they don't even make any sense.
well,
And
because
you're the one that wrote it.
had we had
Yeah.
the meeting the following week,
Yeah.
it would have been like fresh
Yeah,
in
yeah.
mind. But this was over a month ago.
I can't remember that stuff either.
Let's hope my brain might activate.
Usually when I read them, if I stare
He
at
hasn't called in yet now,
it, it comes
so we'll
back.
just have to wait,
School was
if you want to wait a few minutes.
able to log on. It's not quite morning.
Yeah, no.
Canceled school down.
He was supposed to call in at 10 of, so,
You did say something about getting here early.
yeah,
I'll come back to you
yeah.
when he gives his presentation.
Right.
I have really big reservations about this pathway.
No, it's
I
gonna
think
be
it's a good thing, but I don't think it's gonna solve the problem.
well, it's gonna help to streamline and bring things in-house, and you know what it's gonna do? It's gonna help, like, get rid of all the things that, like, okay, maybe that's not necessary, because once you streamline everything, it's like, think about it this way, picture like all your finances being in different places, and you put them all under one house type of thing,
Yeah.
like one portfolio, it's gonna place everything under one portfolio.
Is he calling you?
Hello, Anthony,
Hi, Peter.
on both phones. You just called my cell, and
Yes.
I'm calling in on another cell phone.
Oh, okay.
Just so, you don't need both of them, right? Okay,
No.
now he's back.
I'm gonna hang up on,
Yeah, hang up on the one from me. I was just checking in on you, making sure that everything's okay. You're the voice of God here. I mean, so we can all hear you loud and clear.
if you, I wouldn't say that too often because she might have
This is a regular board meeting with a revised agenda, Thursday, January 18th, 2018. Due to the recent tragic events in our community, this is the first time the board has been able to meet since last November. Because we had to cancel the last two board meetings and indeed move this one, there's a good deal of business needing to be taken care of today. Additionally, we have yet to elect our new board officers for the year, which should have happened in December, but we were unable to meet. When the agenda was posted at the end of last week, we hoped that all currently sitting trustees would be able to attend due to the importance of the business at hand. However, it became clear earlier this week that the 101 was not opening up and that Trustee Hasland would be unable to get here from Carpinteria. Consequently, we arranged for him to participate in the meeting remotely from his home, and an amended agenda was posted Tuesday explaining this. We will have to roll call every vote because we have a person not present. We will not see Peter. He can see us, I understand. He has developed an auditory signal to let us know when he wants to speak. Peter, can you give us a preview or pre-hear? A little louder, I think. We need to be interrupted. That's pretty good. Okay. The other thing that will be a little different today is as part of our, well, let me go back to the roll call. We have everyone present except Dr. Kugler, who resigned effective January 1, and we will come to that later. So all of our currently sitting trustees are present with Peter on remote. The welcome is the area where we're going to expand just a little bit because it has been a long time since we've had a meeting, and Dr. Beebe wants to catch us up a little bit, though that's very hard to do.
Yes, it is. So welcome, everyone. We have had some extraordinary things happen at the college, and I feel it's worth the time to memorialize some of this and kind of walk through it, even though I know that everybody in the room here has experienced what it is I'm talking about, and many folks that are watching this on YouTube have experienced it as well. But as Marsha points out, we've had a fire, we've had a flood, and some other things happen. A fire that took place some 30 miles away in Santa Paula that was started and went on a path of destroying 1,000 homes, over 1,000 homes actually, killing 2 people and producing intolerable smoke and ash that laid across the entire region here. Mandatory and voluntary evacuation areas were established. And with all of this going on, as president of the college, I made the decision to close the college for a total of 6 days, giving people time and attention to do what they needed to do that was best for their families, and in some cases, relocate outside of the area. In the end, the Thomas Fire, at 100% containment, ended at nearly 283,000 acres, covering more than 430 square miles, making it the largest California wildfire in recorded history. After the Thomas Fire, on the morning of January 9th, 2 o'clock in the morning, as a matter of fact, the rain began to fall. And it began to fall in record amounts, triggering mud and debris slides. And we were then contacted by the American Red Cross, and I made the decision that the college should establish, through the American Red Cross, an evacuation center here at the college. And initially it was set up in the campus center, but the evacuation center actually outgrew the campus center, and so we moved it to the sports pavilion, and specifically the gymnasium there. At the same time, there were about 150 firefighters that it wasn't just firefighters, actually. It was firefighters, emergency medical technicians, rescue personnel, and other first responders that needed a place to sleep because they were from out of the area. And so we enabled them to stay in the campus center while they were here in town helping with the mudslide and some of the other rescue operations that were taking place. So in some ways it was kind of ironic because in the gymnasium we had evacuees, and in the campus center we had rescue personnel that helped rescue those evacuees. So it was just kind of an ironic situation that we had there, but we were so glad to be able to help out both sets of folks in a time of need. The mudslide and the debris flow caused the Highway 101 to be blocked, preventing students and staff from gaining access to the college, and was a tremendous hardship, and still is a hardship on many people. And because of this, I made the decision to shift the start of our spring semester by 1 week and extending it by 1 week. So we still have the same amount of instructional hours, with the idea that we'd be giving Caltrans some extra time to work on getting the highway clear. I spoke with the state chancellor about this plan, and he immediately approved it without hesitation, and thanked the entire college for what we've done in helping in the emergency. So this is where we are this afternoon. We're planning the start of the semester next Monday, January 22nd. We still do not know for sure whether or not Highway 101 will be open. We're hoping to hear something either this evening or tomorrow to be able to plan, but it's just not something that we know for sure one way or the other. And for me, people think that I have information about that. I simply don't. Caltrans has been fairly tight-lipped about it, and they don't want to release any information until it's time. So we're waiting for that. As a final note, or a final item, I guess, related to all of this, we were contacted by the Montecito Union School District and Superintendent Anthony Ray, who wanted to know if it might be possible that we accommodate the Montecito Union School, which was in the evacuation area and inaccessible. And so some 415 kids didn't have access to their school. And so our team, executive team, started talking and trying to figure out how we might be able to make that happen. And in fact, we were able to accommodate the school. So we got a hold of Mr. Rainai and let him know that we would be able to take on relocating his school temporarily to our portable buildings that we have here. And their first day was this morning, today, and it's just really a thrill to be able to accommodate that school and be able to try to bring some kind of normalcy, even though it's in a different location, but some kind of normalcy back to those kids. Through all of this, I have to tell you that the college's Emergency Operations Center team was nothing short of remarkable. And this team was made up of individuals that I want to make sure I call out. Myself, Lindsay Moss, Paul Jarrell, Melissa Marino, Mona Lisa Hassan, Paul Bishop, Luz Reyes Martin, Rob Morales, Eric Fricky, Chris Miller, Arturo Rodriguez, and Alexandria Teryoung. This team really was phenomenal in terms of helping all of us make decisions. We were active for at least 3 weeks straight, and then on and off for times that we needed to be activated. And sometimes we met once a day, sometimes we met multiple times a day, all through this, sharing information, updates, anything that we could pull together and that we needed to make decisions. Now, I want to say that there were two individuals that I want to particularly call out, and that's Vice President Lindsay Moss, who was is actually the Emergency Operations Center Director, and is responsible for the logistics of the team, pulling us together, keeping us apprised of different things that came along. And then also the Executive Director of Public Affairs and Communications, Luz Reyes Martin. And I'd like for both of those individuals to come forward. These two individuals worked tirelessly, and I'm not talking about the 8 to 5 jobs. I'm talking about working 12 plus hours a day, weekends, middle of the night, all of those kind of things. And because of that, I want to give them what I'm calling the Everyday Hero Award. And so I just wanted to present these to you.
This is 2 days in a row I've been put on the spot, not knowing what to say. This happened to me yesterday in front of the Montecito Union School District, 80
unusual.
teachers. I was like, whoa. I've been telling Anthony this a lot. I love my job. This has been so much fun. He's been saying it to me. Isn't this fun? I'm like, yes and no, but no, this has been great. This is not something I ever expected to do as a part of my role. I had one of my consultants call me and go, "You're the first California Community College to have an elementary school on your campus, and you just became CBO." So it's just been crazy, but it's fun, and it's been a great learning experience. We're going to take all this information and be even more prepared in the future for any type of emergencies that happen within our community, which I think is wonderful. Learning so much, having such a great time with our team. We have just the best team. We get along so well and we make everything fun, which is great. Take care of each other. So that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Beebe. And Luz is also the best. Between the two of us, we have a good time.
Let's stop having a good time. The only thing I'll say is I'm really proud to be part of SBCC, and I think no more so over the last 6 weeks. This is a fantastic team. We work really well together. We support one another, and we always bring it back to whatever's in the best interest of our students, our campus, and our incredible faculty and staff, and that's really what makes it worth it. So thank you, and we're not out of the woods yet, but we've got a good team in place, and we will keep doing what's best for students and for our staff and faculty. So thank you.
The last piece of this is that I want to mention that, there's obviously been a tremendous amount of human suffering, loss of life, which has been unimaginable and just absolutely horrific. However, here in Santa Barbara, we do love our animals. And many of us think of our animals as family. We have an SBCC community hero that I really must acknowledge. This individual focused on relocating horses to the Earl Warren Showgrounds. She slept in her trailer. She herself was a Thomas Fire evacuee, along with her horses on her property. But it ended up being much more than horses. She led a team, and I happened to drop by and see her a couple times over there. But she led a team that evacuated all kinds of animals. And these included, of course, horses, cows, alpacas, goats, sheep, geese, ducks, chickens, emus, pigs. And at the peak of all of this, my understanding, and I know she's here and she'll correct me if I'm wrong, we know that, there were something like 700 animals that were spread out in the 500 stalls that they have down there. Professor Kathy O'Connor, would you come down?
Good afternoon. When Ellen asked me if I was going to attend the board meeting today, I thought, are they going to drop the PE department or something? She said, no, I just have to come, and then I got scared. This kind of thing is difficult for me. But I do have to correct Dr. Beebe. We had over 1,400 animals at our Warren showgrounds for the fire, and we still have 149 animals there now. So it's been, I guess I could say what Lindsay and Lou said, that it was fun until the last flood. And when I got that mandatory evacuation order, I said a few choice things and was not happy, but we evacuated again, like many people didn't, which is really unfortunate. But we have a great team, and I have a great board, and we had so many volunteers come out that it made it fun, and it made it an experience that we'll never forget. And animals are important to everybody. They are our family, and they're pretty special. At 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, when you're wandering around, wondering what you're doing, and you see the animals, you know why you're there. So thank you very much.
So I show up over there, just wanting to stop in and see how Kathy was doing. The next thing I know, she's got this feed bucket, and she says, grab that, BB, I want you to go feed the chickens. So I did. Yeah, you did put me to work. You got a shirt. Where's your shirt? Yeah, underneath. So as part of... Awesome. You look great. So as part of my report, I'd like for, if it's okay, I'd like for Jeff Green, the CEO of the foundation, to come and give us a report on some of the things that the foundation has been doing. I think it fits in with, very closely and nicely with what it is that we're trying to do at the college. And Jeff and I talk every day, sometimes multiple times a day, in terms of strategy and what we're doing and how we can contribute to the greater good of the community. And I think it's really worth you taking some time to do that, if you wouldn't mind.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Beebe. I am doing my Ken Lee impression today, and it's been noted on several occasions, so I just want to say that out loud. He's here to enjoy that. I did shave, though, yes. I wanted to share with you all a little bit about what the foundation has been doing, and also I want to make it clear so that you know and can spread the word about what is available. So what we have been able to do is essentially make 3 kinds of assistance available to the campus community. Very early on, just because of our relationships in the community with the nonprofit sector that was immediately part of the response team, as well as some of the policymakers and folks. We were in that conversation. I reached out to Dr. Beebe, and we began the conversation of what we should do. At this point, and I actually just sent an email around, and Luz has been very helpful in making sure the right folks know all of these things, is we are offering essentially 3 things. The first came out of the Thomas Fire. And that was after we checked in with our peers in Santa Rosa and Ventura, who had the brunt of it. Now, Santa Rosa Junior College, over 1,000 students, staff, and faculty actually lost their homes in the fires up there in October. So that was all at a single college. So we were in touch. I was in touch with my peer up there, Kate McClintock. And then at early stages of the Thomas Fire, of course, Ventura received the brunt of that damage from the human structure and possession perspective. And so what we have done is put together something that's in parity with what they've done, and we're offering emergency grants to anyone in the campus community that lost homes or vehicles in initially the fire and now the flood as well. So we put that word out. We put it out actually in December. We reiterated it in January, and I just sent a link. We've actually put it up on our website now with a couple of forms. So for anyone that's in that position, we're asking them just to please contact me directly. Simply by fortune and geography, we know that that's not a great number of individuals, but of course the losses are catastrophic. So what we're going to do is respond to those on a one-to-one basis. The second thing that we're able to do is, as soon as we saw that the transit challenge would be part of the picture, is actually offer to pay for the additional expense for anyone having to find alternatives around the closure. So whether they are, and I want to appreciate the campus community was quick to say, how about this? Can we do that? Does this work too? So it quickly expanded from a small basic idea to a pretty clear set of offers. So what we're offering now is that we have the capacity and the resources and the donors to back it up. By the way, we very quickly also got call from our donor community and my board to say, how can we help? So we guided people in this direction. Anyone who has any out-of-pocket expense, whether they're taking the water taxis, the train, or even driving the long way around, we're reimbursing on a direct cost basis. So basically, there's a simple form that says, here's what I was out of pocket, and then we immediately reimburse that, usually same day is what we're trying to do. The third offer actually came out of the recognition that as we bump back our start date for the spring semester, that many of our employees, and this is, when I say from the foundation perspective, by the way, when I talk about employees, I mean all employees regardless of classification or status. So we're talking about all employees of the college. If they have to go a long way around or find a way to be here late or early or a regular work schedule and need some support to stay over, I've been just delighted to see how many faculty and staff have said, I've got an extra room, I've got an extra place, and I know people have been doing that. The college made it easy for folks to stay in their offices if they needed to, but I know some folks have been stuck and not been able to do that. So we are able to also offer some support toward lodging, partial support for employees who need to be here for a regular work schedule. So those are the three things we are able to offer in direct assistance. We are also, our door is open, and we've had a handful of people that have pretty extraordinary circumstances, and we just said, if your challenge doesn't fit this model, just call or email or let us know. And so I've met with a number of folks, and we've been able to help them. So just want to let you all know that is an open-ended offer. There's no cap on it. We're hoping, of course, that the 101 or an alternate opens soon. Should our semester start next week and the 101 is still closed, and I think there's a very good likelihood of that, at least initially, from what I understand, then this offer extends to students as well. We are not at this point offering to lodge students simply because student schedules are more in and out in general, but we are offering everything else to all students. We want that word spread because by the time we made these offers to the student body, many students had already left because of the Thomas Fire evacuation. So we want to make sure that we capture those students that were seriously affected in the Thomas Fire. And then again, extraordinary circumstances, students that may need to be here late for a particular class, we certainly will work with people for whatever they need. Again, just to do the little sliver we can do, which is removing some of those financial barriers. So that is our technical role right now. We're also in contact with the resource center that just opened over on Calle Cesar Chavez, and we're working with our nonprofit partners, United Way, Red Cross, and daily talking to them about how our assistance meshes with theirs and so forth. So that this may change, there may be more things we can offer, but at the moment, that's what we're doing. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Very generous on the foundation's part. The board, the foundation board has been absolutely just amazing in terms of how they've reached out to me, to the community. So kudos all the way around. Thank you so much. That's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. I just wanted to say that I am so proud of SBCC, all the folks who worked so hard on these accommodations for the evacuees, for the first responders, and now for our guests, the Montecito Union Elementary School, working with McKinley as well. These are just wonderful things, and they are a gift to us because by helping them, including the animals, we help ourselves. We help ourselves heal, just as this community is coming together to heal. I'd like to take just a moment of silence to honor those who died in the fire or the flood, who were injured, who lost their homes, lost their animals, lost their jobs and livelihood. Thank you. We now move to items to be taken out of order. And our first item is the delayed from December election of president and vice president for this board for the coming year. I think that the simplest way to move forward, and hopefully efficient, will be to inquire of everyone so that people who are interested in serving can say so. And then if we have more than one person, we will go to a vote, and I think we will hopefully make a decision. So,
I'm happy to serve in that capacity this year. I think that everybody's been stretched in so many different ways, and as a board, I think that I can come alongside the board, Dr. Beebe, and the college, and myself continue to serve and be stretched in whatever capacity we need to ensure that our community continues to benefit from our mission.
okay.
I'm also interested in serving as president. My interest lies in, really uniting and building a relationship as a board with the faculty and students and rest of the community. Addressing issues like equity, persistence, the remedial issues, really what I'm really focused on, and continuing addressing affordability, including housing, beyond just recent high school graduates, but for all our students, and then also building our legislative relationships more to solve problems that we can do through the state level.
Okay, we have two excellent candidates, and my suggestion here is that we each vote. Angie is going to be calling roll today, every day, all votes, and we each vote, and we do it in one shot for a person. I don't see a lot of value in just saying nay. I think we can affirmatively vote. So, Angie, roll.
Okay. Trustee Croninger.
Veronica Gallardo.
Trustee Aboud.
Myself?
Well said.
Trustee Bloom. Jonathan Aboud. Trustee Gallardo.
Myself.
Trustee Nielsen.
Veronica.
Trustee Hasland.
I will vote for both candidates. But one, don't I? And I think in order to avoid a runoff, I would vote for Veronica.
Veronica.
Okay. That is 4, so that is a majority of the board. And Veronica, you are the new president. Vice president. Or should we have Veronica do that? I can't remember what we did last time.
I think you
Finish it
go.
off.
Oh, okay.
Or twice.
Finish
Okay,
it
she says go ahead and you finish it.
All right. Vice president. Who would like to take that job?
I can do it again.
Jonathan? And Craig?
I've done it once before.
So we have 2 experienced candidates here. Same procedure.
Okay. Trustee Croninger.
I'm like Peter here. You called me first, though. That's not fair.
Okay, well, I could go up. Trustee Aboud.
Myself?
Trustee Bloom.
Jonathan again.
Trustee Gallardo.
Jonathan?
Trustee Nielsen.
Gosh. I'll vote for Jonathan. Okay.
Greg, you just got to 4.
Okay.
You just got to 4. We don't
So
even need Peter.
Jonathan is,
You don't have to make the tough decision.
yeah, all right. Jonathan, congratulations.
Thank you.
No, wait, I'm wrong. No, 4.
Yeah, no, there's 4.
I don't have to
Yeah.
decide. Peter doesn't have to decide.
Right,
We're
right,
done.
Right.
Okay, Veronica, we're going to switch.
Are we
And
really?
we have a book for you here.
Well, I
And
must say,
Anthony will help, because I know you weren't involved in creating this agenda, so.
well, I know that the college got the best of both worlds because that's a genuine capacity to serve.
Yeah. Congratulations to both.
You know, I have a lot luggage, because I carry all the snacks.
Careful.
Sorry.
No worries. How's it going?
Thank you, Jonathan. Congratulations.
I'm happy to serve.
I'm so happy
We'll
to
be a
hear.
good team.
Yes.
So we want to 5.2?
Yep, so we're moving to item 5.2, which is minutes from,
No.
acknowledgement of Dr. Marianne Kugler. I didn't want to do that one. So we've come to item 5.2, which we're acknowledging the service of Dr. Marianne Kugler.
So I've always said that public service is really the highest calling. And when I think about Mary Ann, I think about not just the 5 years that you've spent as a public servant here for the college, but the 54 years that you spent in education. That's remarkable. That's absolutely remarkable. And we've got a couple of things that we want to be able to give you. The first one is a plaque that expresses our appreciation for your leadership on the Board of Trustees here, including your spending time as president. I'm not sure exactly what the dates were of that, but I know that you were president of the board at one point.
2015.
What's that? 2015. So we want to be able to present this to you, but we have some other things, so you can just kind of collect them all up at once. Did you want to present that to her? Let her know about that?
Wood for a strong woman. Yeah, you can do it.
Anthony, I can comment if you like.
Okay, go ahead, Marcia.
This one was sort of my idea. Mary Ann, in her spare time, is a painter, and she does beautiful work and is shown in many galleries. She's going to be in the Faulkner coming up February, is it, Mary Ann? And also has a piece, I think, right now in the Faulkner. And other galleries, Carpinteria, Santa Barbara, and so forth. So in thinking about what she might enjoy from us, I thought of that. And Anthony, you can give it.
It's a beautiful brush.
Well, in the box, I said wood, strong woman. I mean, there's tree bark is unique, and wood is, Mary Ann's pretty special.
So, Dr. Kugler, I'm sure that there are others who would like to say some things about your service. So we would probably want to open that up.
Yeah, we'll just kind of go around, and I can start at that end with student trustee.
Well, I've only known you for about half a year, but I really enjoyed getting to know you and seeing some of your paintings, and I'll definitely be at the Faulkner showing as well. So thank you for your service.
Mary Ann, you have been a wonderful, wonderful participant and a real touchstone for this board, for all of your service. And that has meant a great deal to me personally, and I think to our other members of the board. Your comments are wise and helpful and insightful. And Anthony mentioned your experience in education. He didn't even count the part when you were actually going to school, I think. And this is something none of us can match, and we will miss it. So, thank you.
I could go on for 30 minutes, but I promise not to. Yeah, the microphone's on. I'm not close enough? Okay. You're supposed to turn up the gain. Mary Ann, and I came on the same time you did, as you well know, and it's been 5 years. And this environment was new to me. And dealing with an administration and what goes on, I spent my whole working career going around it and under it, you know, and sometimes just barreling through. But without your help and guidance, I don't think I would have been near as effective. And just, you're going to be sorely missed because of this, on this diversified board, there's not another you.
Mary Ann, she and I we had lunch together today, which was very nice, but, so I've said a lot to her. But I just wanted to acknowledge her, the depth of her knowledge is amazing, and we counted on that. And so I asked her if she'd be around if we needed her, and she said delighted. So that's always good news. It has been wonderful. I think we met in 2010 when I was first running, and I just thought, this is a woman that really, you know, you can count on, because she'll tell it like it is and tell it in a good way and very cordial, and everything about her is wonderful. So thank you, Mary Ann, for all your service here.
Peter, can you hear us?
I'm here. I would love to chime in. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Mary Ann and I worked together on any number of writing projects, and she was just a delight to work with. You know, if you're working together with someone and you're writing something together, it is very easy to become very critical of one another, and we managed not to do that and to come up with valuable products that satisfied the need, and I think in particular when it came to writing reviews of our superintendent presidents, we did well and we worked well together, and I really appreciate the level of insight that you had, the level of commitment to our board, to the college, to the students, and to the idea of student success. That, my friend, was second to none. Thank you.
Mary Ann was board president when I was first a trustee, so it was good. I remember we met, and she told me, you know, you should never be late to a meeting, and I stuck with that. I had to be late once for work, but that was good advice. But Mary Ann always, I thought, especially when I didn't know anything, and when she was president, and we were going through a lot, and she had wisdom and experience for every issue we faced from the whole 3 years I was here. So it was always good to hear from her, especially in some of our closed sessions when we've had really controversial things. Mary Ann was always there to help guide the board. So thank you.
Everyone should have a friend like Mary Ann, and I'm just grateful to have served with her in this capacity as a trustee, but also benefit from her friendship, because the wealth of experience she has as a mother, as a wife, working in education, serving her community, is truly admirable and inspirational, and I thank you for that, Mary Ann. So, will we take a little break?
There might be some people here.
Yeah, we need Liz, please.
Mary Ann, on behalf of the classified staff and myself individually, I want to thank you for your service to the college. It's been quite an interesting 5 years. It's been quite a run, and I've enjoyed our other conversations about art, and I look forward to seeing your art show, and good luck with that. But thank you very much for your service to the college, especially in the times we've been through.
And anyone else that would like to follow, please join us at the podium. Yeah.
Well, am I already on because I handed in a paper?
No.
For Mary Ann?
For,
comments about Marianne. Right, I would then just take the last 5 lines of my paper.
What works for you?
So, which I want to start with the word finally, but now it's not finally. So the Faculty Association wants to thank Trustee Marianne Kugler for her years of service on the board. She always had an open ear for faculty concerns. We worked together through many good times and a few times of rougher waters. We will surely remember all of these times, and surely we will miss Marianne. And we truly hope, Marianne, you will swing by in your red sports car, if you still have it, and check in of us. Thank you.
Please.
Marianne, I wanted to acknowledge over the many years, and I used to attend board meetings before I came Academic Senate President, so I've seen you for a while. I've seen a real consistency in your commitment to education and to what's good for students, and to really thinking about the big picture and how to make all good things possible. So I thank you for that and appreciate your work so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marianne.
I do have one last thing that I need to make sure that I do. In terms of recognition, and I need to make sure that we thank properly Marcia Croninger for her service as board president. So we put this together for you. We know that you have a green thumb and you'll be able to make this thing grow and do great things with it.
Yeah.
No pressure there, though.
Thank you, Anthony. That's a wonderful thought. And you didn't clear it with me on the agenda. For obvious reasons. It wouldn't have been there.
Okay.
I've really appreciated the time working with you. And as I said earlier, I am so proud of SBCC and how you have handled our recent events and our relationship with the community as a result.
Thank you, everyone. So that brings us to item 3.1, minutes of the regular meeting of November 9th. Is there a motion to approve item 3.1? A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I actually had an addition, if that could be added. Page 4, item 3 on page 4, we're talking about the report on the campus center, and I think that there were 2 things that were important to our discussion and that report that we could add. One is, the last item is a structural one that is a voluntary improvement of the performance of the building related to seismic. And the distinction there is we're not required by building codes to do this, but we want to do it. And so it is a voluntary improvement. And the other thing is that it was estimated at the meeting that this can be accomplished for less than $1 million, that funds that would come from what we have reserved for the campus center. So I would.
So with those additions,
Yeah.
is everyone comfortable to approve? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, roll call, Ms. Peters.
Trustee Gallardo.
Aye.
Trustee Abud.
Aye.
Trustee Croninger.
Aye.
Trustee Bloom.
Aye.
Trustee Hasland.
Aye.
Trustee Nielsen.
Aye.
Student Trustee Pambechi.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. That takes us to item 4.1, public comments, and we have Cornelia. Welcome back to the podium.
Thank you so much for having me back. Honorable members of the Board of Trustees, President Gallardos, congratulations on your election, and Dr. Vivi. I am very happy
really, really happy to see, or at least hear, all of you safe and sound. And given what happened to many members in our community recently, we might have taken that for granted in the past, but definitely not anymore. Our community has been shocked by the mudslide disaster, which has impacted many members of our college in one way or the other, and surely did not leave anyone untouched. Our hearts are with the victims and their families. The continuing closure of Freeway 101 would have made, and still makes it, extremely difficult, if not impossible, for students, faculty, and staff to come to campus. The administration has therefore decided to postpone the semester for 1 week, and I would like to confirm that the Faculty Association Executive Board is in full support of this decision. And also, I would like to thank everyone here on campus who pitched in many extra hours and hard work to make the necessary changes happen. We are hopeful that the 101 reopens by next week to allow for an orderly start of the new semester, but we do not know yet. In the meantime, the FA webmaster, Erin O'Connor, has created a community assistant page on the Faculty Association website, fa.sbcc.edu, where faculty and others can post offers for help. And people who need assistance, may it be in the form of a room to stay, a ride share, blankets and toiletries, a bicycle, they can go to the FA website and look up these offers. Finally, I believe I owe you a report from the faculty plenary session back in November. The FA and the Academic Senate had invited faculty to learn about the college budget, about efficiency, and about ways to improve both. Priscilla and I both gave a presentation from the Senate and from the FA points of view. The FA also had asked for input on a proposal to a possible path to higher efficiency. We received very good and well thought out and sophisticated feedback from faculty. Many of them voiced concerns, so the FA is back to the drawing board to change the proposal and make it a better one before it is ready to present the details. But I want to assure you that we are continuing our work on this important issue. And last but not the least, the FA wants to thank President Croninger for her tireless work as board president. Thank you.
Thank you, Cornelia. Víctor Villegas.
Long hike.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. I want to say thank you for having me. This has been quite interesting, listening into everything and observing. I didn't know it was an award ceremony tonight. It's kind of cool. But what I wanted to speak on was more of a serious matter and a little bit personal to me. I've been having a hard time here at Santa Barbara City College with enrollment and a low GPA, and just falling on hard times, from people dying to being in really unhealthy and even violent environments. Hard times, just economically, and just riding, the up and downs, the ebb and flow of what we all go through. It's just recently I've been kind of going through a little bit more, and I expressed my dis-ease and frustration through an email, and I think at the moment I was unwise with my words, and I was a little bit rude. And right now, coming back from again another recent event in my life, Palm Springs, is that losing the job before enrollment and Thanksgiving, and having the family. I have 3 little ones and my fiance going back to Phoenix in Arizona after Thanksgiving. They only made it halfway. They rolled. Almost had my whole family die. Little ones, about 4.5 to 8 years old, 2 girls and a boy. My fiance as well, getting thrown out of the sunroof.
breaking her neck and back. And, you know, so I'm a little late for enrollment, and I come back, and what I'm getting is, you know, we don't, you know, we understand that, and life is kind of hard, and that's a little too bad. But your wording was not politically correct, and it, you know, it didn't look good for me. It didn't reflect well. But somebody that is very serious in education, wanting to learn and wanting to push forward with my family and actually get into the work world and do something different and shake it up. Being that, you know, the pace of progression, you know, with a lot of things, mine is not the best at CC, but I were to, you know, look out as well in this world that we're living in. You know, what if we were to do that to Donald Trump or somebody else, or here even? Is it with a lot of things? I think we could put that on people as a pace of progression. You haven't been meeting up to the standards. And the
2 more
performance.
minutes.
And cut them short, you know, and get people that are serious in. And I'm serious about education. I think that's really what I want to say. I hope that maybe somebody here could either help me out or do something to help kind of smooth out my predicament and my enrollment here for spring and the coming semesters, because I am quite intelligent. I want to move forward with my degree and do something positive in this world and be the change that I want to see. And I think all of you may agree upon that. I think here's that's what we strive for. It's onward and upward. And thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll have them connect with somebody.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just featured on our agenda, as you guys can see, we have a lot of presentations on pathways and so many different services that we have. So, Mr. Villegas, thank you for your comments, and please feel free to connect with Dr. Beebe, and we can go from there. Thank you. No problem.
If I may, I'd like to give the gifts to Dr. Kugler. And
I was going to fill out the public comment slip for her.
There you go.
we kind of got out of order with some. Did you want to say something?
It's very hard to say goodbye, and so I want to be sure you know that I'm not saying goodbye. I'm just not going to be a trustee. Santa Barbara City College is one of the stars in my existence, and I will certainly be around. I'll be taking courses, I'll be bugging people, and so it isn't goodbye. It's just a slightly different role. I had never painted a single thing in my life till I started at Santa Barbara City College. And I've learned an enormous amount about art here, but I've learned lots of other things too. And one of the things that I love about it was shown today with all of the staff and faculty that are here and the board. It all feels like one family. And so thank you all for letting me be part of it.
Thank you. Okay, 5.1 and 5.2 have been taken out of order, so that brings us to item 5.3, establishment of our annual organization meeting. So it's recommended that the board approve the setting of our annual session meeting as per Ed Code and our board policies. Is everybody okay with? Yes, okay. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Roll call, Angie.
Second.
Oh, Peter seconds? And Nielsen.
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Trustee Bloom?
Aye.
Trustee Hasland?
Aye.
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Student trustee Pambechi?
Aye.
Okay, item 5.4, establishment of the 2018 meetings, time, date, and places. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Second.
Another second.
You did.
You did, yeah.
Roll call?
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Trustee Bloom.
Aye.
Trustee Abud.
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo.
Aye.
Trustee Nielsen.
Aye.
Trustee Hasland.
Aye.
Student Trustee Pambici.
Aye.
Item 5.5, discussion of revisions to Board Policy 2210, Officers and Board Policy 2220, Committees and the Board, and dialogue on board organization and structure. We have Board Policy 2110. Open it up for any discussion.
This is an item we would have done in December, as you could tell. And I just wanted to mention there is also an unresolved piece of this, which is at the bottom of page 1 onto page 2, where we have a succession item that if we proceed as we have been doing, and that's the point of this discussion, if we proceed that way, we would probably take out, well, I'm sure we would have to take out the reference to the Chair of Board Fiscal and Chair of Board Facilities as successors if the Vice President could not perform the duties of the President in the absence of the President. And my own thinking was probably one backup is enough for practical reasons, but I didn't, and Anthony and I didn't put forward a suggested change here. It would just delete if you did that. So.
Anybody opposed to that? It's just up for discussion, so this will come back for approval later. So it'll come back a second reading with those noted changes.
It would actually go to BPAP and then come back.
Well, right, yeah,
for
but by the
first
time it
and
comes back
second.
to us.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, in the event that the first two couldn't, I think the board, they're all mature, we're fairly experienced. I think we can cope with it, and I think it's just unneeded verbiage. So I'm for the deletion.
So, excuse me, just to be clear, are we deleting the second bullet point under Vice President? Is that what you're saying?
After the reference to the Vice President only, just to the references to the committees. The gist of this being that
Yeah.
we've been operating as a board as a whole on fiscal and facilities, and therefore we have no subcommittee.
No, I understood what you were saying, but it's the second bullet point then, where if the Vice President is not able, blah, blah, blah. So that's, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So we'll just
So
scratch that one off.
Are you suggesting that we remove the second bullet?
I think that's what she's suggesting. That's why I
Yeah.
was asking her if that's really what she wanted.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we keep the bullet, but not the language after immediate past president of the board.
I don't even think we need that. I
Could
mean,
be.
I'm with Craig. I think you're going to have either the president or the vice president, and if that doesn't work, then somebody else will pick it up, and it doesn't have to be, you know, I don't quite understand why we need any of that.
Just keep it clean.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is that okay with you?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's out for discussion, and I think that's a perfectly good solution. I mean, it's kind of over succession right now.
yeah, I agree. Okay.
Okay, what about any discussion for 2220?
Yeah, let me just get it on here for a second. Because we don't, it's awkward. And I don't know what, it's sort of hard, but because we don't have any standing committees now, and we don't want any standing committees, but then we go into what you have to do if you're a standing committee, and I don't know, it's very wordy because there are no standing committees, and awkward, so I don't know quite how to, I guess we could just leave it like that. I don't know. I just don't know what the solution is. It seems like you could say it in 2 paragraphs, but it's got about half dozen paragraphs instead, you know. Number 1, we don't have any standing committees, but if we decided to do that, the Brown Act, blah, blah, blah. And then number 2, the ad hoc committees are just, that one line under ad hoc committees is good. So I know it's because we're
Get rid of the
we're getting rid
standing
of some
committee
other
stuff.
stuff and all that, but it makes it awkward.
I don't have a problem with that either. I mean,
Great.
I don't have a problem getting rid of it, but in the event that we do feel the need to, over the next few years, establish a standing committee for a period of time, we would have something that would govern it, and it would already be written, and we don't have to do anything, except maybe revise what's there. I'm sort of for, let's just leave it alone. It doesn't affect our day-to-day or monthly operations at all. So I don't see a real need to do anything about it at this point.
Okay.
Just an opinion.
Anyone else? I agree with both Craig and Marty. In the event we need to have it, it's there for Brown Act, and I'm assuming legal reasons that we're complying, and it doesn't seem like we're gonna just all of a sudden create something. Okay, that'll come back. Item 5.6, appointment of representative and alternative to the County Committee on School District Organization. And it's a committee that doesn't usually meet, right, Marty?
I was it for 7 or 8 years, I don't know. No, it must have been 6 years.
Mhm.
And it never met.
Mhm.
So then, were
Yeah.
you the one that took it over?
Yeah, I joined you, and then Peter. Mhm.
Yeah, and it's never met.
No.
So
It's a great committee.
you put it on your resume,
Low
I
maintenance.
guess. I don't know, I didn't even do that, but
Mhm.
I guess in case it ever should meet. So if you wanted something, another line in your resume, you could try to do that.
That's what I need is another
Yeah.
line on a resume that I'm never going to show anybody.
I know, that's what at my age, yeah.
Any self-nominations? Otherwise, we will. Craig,
If
thank
you're
you.
too busy for that now, because you're president, I'd be happy to assume that non-time consuming position, unless Jonathan would like it.
I'm okay.
And Peter, you're okay with Craig taking over?
The workload of this committee has been substantially absent. And, so if he would like to take that over, I think that would be wonderful.
Oh, boy, and now I have Peter's blessing as well, or
That's good.
condemnation, as the case may be.
And would anyone like to be an alternate in the event that Craig can't make the meeting that never really happens?
Right, I promise to give you at least last-minute notice.
Yeah. Anybody want to be an alternate for that?
I guess I can.
Sure.
There we go.
Peter?
Thank you,
Peter just said yes.
Okay, so all in favor of,
Let me do a roll call.
yes, of trustee Nielsen serving in this capacity and trustee Haslund as an alternate. Roll call, Angie.
Trustee Bloom,
Aye.
trustee Abloud,
Aye.
trustee Gallardo,
Aye.
trustee Croninger,
Aye.
trustee Nielsen,
Aye.
trustee Hasland,
Aye.
student trustee Pambetti.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Item 5.7, appointment of representative to the Santa Barbara City College Foundation Board for 2018. Mary Ann served in this capacity as an alternate, and I've been serving in this capacity since this past year. It's a great group of folks. I think that this is one that we should rotate through because you get to interface with the fundraising arm, well, beyond the fundraising arm of our institution. It really is a folk that's dedicated to really making sure that that mission reaches as many folks as possible.
I haven't done it before.
Okay. So we
Oh.
can go to
I'll volunteer for alternate.
alternate, okay. So we have Jonathan and Marcia as alternate. Roll call, Angie.
Trustee Abud,
Aye.
trustee Bloom,
Aye.
trustee Nielsen,
Aye.
trustee Bloom,
Oh, I just voted.
oh, I'm sorry, trustee Croninger.
Aye.
Yeah, you
vote
did.
twice.
Who did I not call?
Peter.
Trustee Hasland,
Let me think about this. Okay, yes.
And,
trustee Croninger,
no, I did. It's
trustee
Veronica.
Gallardo.
Aye.
Thank you. Student trustee Pambetti.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. 5.8, appointment of board representatives. And in the past, we've had K-12 liaison, legislative, and that's it, because we just had the other two as formals. The K-12 liaison, Marianne and I started that off and served in that capacity, and it was really just making connections with really what's going on with the Carpentria Unified School District, Santa Barbara Unified School District, and Goleta Unified District, and sort of being kind of eyes and ears to see if there's ways in which some items are beneficial to them and vice versa, and really exploring venues by which we can really help each other fulfill each other's missions. So, Craig?
Yeah, I'm kind of up for that. I'm used to being on 2 committees, and now, yeah, I can handle that.
Okay.
In fact, I'm pretty interested in it.
Okay, so
I wouldn't interfere if you weren't president, but now that you're president, you won't have time to do all that stuff.
You guys are telling me all this stuff. I won't have time.
I think you were doing a good job.
Thanks. So Craig, you're good with K-12, and then legislative liaison.
I can do it again.
That was a lot of good information you brought to us. Okay, so that really is just for discussion. So Angie, it's noted, Craig, K-12 in that.
Okay.
And that brings us to the development of the consent agenda. We do have any items 6.1 that we'd like to remove before we develop it. Yes, Marcia.
I believe it's 8.1, where we can benefit from additional information and discussion. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so now if we can get a motion to
Question.
adopt, oh, yes, Peter.
On 8.2, I don't know that I really need to take it off the list, but there are a number of stipends that are regularly paid to a whole folks. And just from the point of view of accountability, do we have a mechanism whereby we know that assignments that have been made are actually completed?
Could you repeat the question, Peter? Do we have a mechanism by which?
I'm getting some.
The assignments are completed.
Okay, I'll try to be brief about it. What do we have an accountability method or approach to ensuring that work that was stipulated to be done is actually accomplished?
We have Dr. Jarrell here to be able to explain that. He's been working on that diligently and has an answer for you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Peter. Yeah, in fact, when we process the paperwork, the flow around this is that projects will be identified, stipends will be produced that would be an amount not to exceed based upon an estimated amount of time that would be required to complete the work that's in question. Prior to the initiation of payment through payroll, there is a payment memo that goes to payroll that has a verification of services on it that goes through the whoever happens to be the managing budget manager of that particular grant, that those services have been performed, and then payroll will not issue pay until that has been issued and that it has also been board reported. So that's our kind of checks and balances for those payments.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Okay, given that clarification, explanation, thank you, Dr. Jarrell. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda, items 7.1 through 7.4, 8.2 through 9, 10, till 10.1?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Well, I'll make the motion if you'd like.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
Question?
Yes, Peter? I mean,
What did you,
Craig?
which ones did you skip?
Yeah.
We just,
8.1?
just pulling 8.1, the Basic Skills Initiative, Student Equity and Student Success Support Program Integrated Plan.
The integrated plan.
But
We
can
pulled
I
that
ask,
one.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Marty, yes.
why didn't we go on to why did we just do 9.1?
Oh, why did we go all the way through 10.1?
Yeah, no, why didn't we include more?
Oh, because the resolutions call for a roll call, right, Angie?
Ratification of the purchase
Yes.
orders and all that, okay. Every other one, I'm just looking. Okay. Got it.
Even though we're
Thank
roll
you.
calling everything tonight, but that one
I know. I
officially
see that,
calls
yeah.
for roll
No,
call.
that's fine.
Okay, so with that, we have a,
Did you have a motion?
we had a motion and we had a second. we had discussion, and now we can roll call.
Yes.
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Bloom?
Aye.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Hasland?
Aye.
Student Trustee Pambechi?
Aye.
Did you note, Angie, who had motioned and who seconded?
No.
No, so that was,
I was second, I
Marcia was
believe.
second. and-
And, okay, and Craig.
Yep. Okay, so now we're going back up to item 8.1, Basic Skills Initiative, Integrated Plan, Basic Skills.
So the State Chancellor's Office now requires that the three categorical areas of basic skills, student equity, and the Student Success and Support Program funding be combined into a single plan. And so we're in kind of a transition period with this. And I know Dr. Jarrell is here to talk about how that's moving forward and what this is all about.
Yeah, certainly. Good afternoon, everybody. So as Dr. Beebe mentioned, in the past, when initiatives came down from the Chancellor's Office that were linked to particular programs, we refer to these as categorical funding, and there are usually, depending upon the language that's associated with these particular initiatives, there are usually limitations on how the money can be spent and on what types of services. And we have many of those programs. You probably I've heard of for years, Triple SP now, Student Equity for the past few years. Basic Skills has been around for quite a while. More recently, Strong Workforce Program. These are all, and then now coming up, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit, Guided Pathways. These are all movements or initiatives from the Chancellor's Office to try to move the needle for the statewide system in one particular area or the other. So for example, in Triple SP, those are those core services that we provide our students: assessment, counseling, orientation, ed plans, follow-up services. That money was linked to those kinds of activities. Student equity was all centered around closing identifiable achievement gaps that exist between certain groups on campus, and we went through an exercise here a few years ago about identifying what are those groups and where are those gaps that we want to try to make efforts to close. And then basic skills, obviously, and increasing the percentage of students that make their way through college level math and English. So those are the three that have kind of overlapping outcomes. And so the Chancellor's Office decided that rather than have us draw up three plans, do three separate reporting and all of that, that they would do some integration. And I think that we will see more of this on the horizon. So I think this is a good way for us to test how we're going to roll these massive integrations out. And this particular one was their first attempt at that. I suspect we'll see some of the other categoricals coming in integrated plans moving forward as well. So now we have an integrated plan. We didn't have any separate plans last year. This new integrated plan covers 2 years. The budgets come yearly. There's still 3 separate budgets that come for this, but the Chancellor's Office has loosened up the restrictions so that locally we can decide what is justifiable and a needed expense, and we can use those sum of monies to support our integrated plan. And so that's what you have before you that we're looking to submit. In order to meet the requirements of the legislation, this requires, we're asking for board approval and requires board approval prior to submission. And we had originally had it scheduled for you a while ago, but that's what we'd be asking for you is a vote of support of this particular plan. If you had a chance to look at it, you'll notice that we really identified 5 integrated goals that cross or intersect all 3 of these different initiatives. We focused those on increasing the percentage of students that complete college-level math and English in their first year. And we'll talk a little bit later when we get to some of the Guided Pathways initiatives that these are many of these initiatives that we're talking about here are also goals and outcomes that we are going to strive for with Pathways as well. So again, I think we'll see that Pathways being folded into these initiatives moving forward next year in the plan. We also had as an integrated plan to create a campus environment of support for all of our students, so really working towards that welcoming environment that really creates a sense of belonging for students to increase their success and retention. We wanted to increase the number of students that identified a career path within the first year, and again, consistent with guided pathways, that's another main initiative there. We wanted to work on fall-to-fall persistence as a key indicator of student success, is being able to enter into that second year. And lastly, and really the overarching one, is that we wanted to make sure as we do all of those things that we are lessening any achievement gaps that appear among identifiable groups on campus. So we really want to not only raise the bar, but make sure that that bar is accessible and reachable for all of our students on campus. So that's really how we centered the plan here, and you'll see a budget summary in there to support that plan as well, and I'm happy to address any specific questions that you might have about this. I can tackle those individually if you like.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Durrell, for that introduction and
Yeah,
that
you're welcome.
summary. Before we go into discussion, is there a motion to approve the BSI SC Triple SP Integrated Plan for 2017-2019?
I'll move to.
Jonathan, second.
Second?
Okay, now is there any discussion, questions while we have Dr. Durrell here? Yes, Jonathan?
I just think this makes so much sense because reporting takes so much staff time and reports, so this makes way more sense. I'm glad they're doing this.
Yeah, and I would also like to say that not only are they really trying to allow us to not be overburdened with reporting, they're trying to identify the metrics that really are the most meaningful with regard to measuring our success in achieving these outcomes. And they're working towards using a similar set of metrics for all of the initiatives that we have, and I'll talk a little bit more about those when we get to the guided pathways as well, because that's really where we're going to see a lot more integration, not only of plans, but use of common metrics to assess success.
One of the things that I was thinking about as I read this, and maybe you can clarify this for me, we have the 17 to 19 integrated plan and the signature page for that. And then we have the 17 to 19 student equity executive summary. Are they going together?
So yes, in the sense that because these three different plans arose from three different sets of legislation, they all had different requirements. And one of the requirements for the funding and the initiative for the student equity was that there was an executive summary that was written and posted on the website, and then it covered the ways that monies have been spent. So in order to satisfy the needs of the integrated plan, we had to include in the integrated plan an executive summary for the student equity plan, although that realizing that, and it was most of that you'll notice is past events from prior student equity plans and budgets. The reporting on that will be as an effort from the integrated plan moving forward, but until they have an opportunity to change the legislation, these separate kind of requirements, we still have to meet them. That's why you didn't have to sign all three reports before, you only had to sign one, and so, but now that they're all together, we have to sign it to satisfy the requirements of that one. So it's kind of a way to meet all of the different
But the student equity plan will be attached as part of?
There is no student equity plan. It is an integrated plan.
The executive summary?
The executive summary, right. So it's not attached. There's a link. We're required to submit a link, and this has to be posted on our website.
So when you have in the last page, 22 of 23, see attached, right at the bottom, that's not it. What's attached?
That is it for you, but when it goes to the state, it will be a link to the website. We didn't want to publish it until it was approved.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah, where I'm headed here in the bigger picture, but I wanted to see if I understood the pieces.
Sure.
Was the direction from the state that this must be data-driven planning? An effective plan is grounded in data. In developing your integrated plan, refer to existing data from your previous plans, additional statewide data and/or data collected at your colleges. And what I'm reading is text, not data.
There's in the executive summary, the requirements were to include data from closing the achievement gaps or the metrics that we identified in our original plan in 14-15 and 15-16. Those are the requirements for that. Indeed, as we develop a plan moving forward, those projects that are being supported we need to have a mechanism to evaluate those plans moving forward as far as continued support. While that's not a requirement, or that information wasn't required to include in the integrated plan, that would be something that we will use as we evaluate proposals that come forward on how we're going to spend any discretionary funds that we have available.
Well, I was,
for the
I
integrated
was
plan.
reading this instruction as an instruction for the integrated plan. Are you saying that's not true? They don't want the data in the plan?
That is correct. The requirements were and that, what you're seeing is the template or the spreadsheet exactly that was given to us to complete.
Well, from my perspective, the data is really critical. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is understanding what's the baseline, what is our goal, and, you know, later being able to assess, did we meet that goal, and how are we going to measure whether we met that goal, which is also looks tricky for some of these. It's something that I would expect up front in the plan, and I'm kind of thinking that it would benefit from more of that.
Certainly.
Well,
And
one-
I recognize it needs to go in. I mean, I'm not
No, I understand.
suggesting that. I'm just wondering if we could continue to work on it and add in those concepts.
Yeah, our plan operationally, the way we went about this in order to complete the integrated plan, was we have 3 separate steering committees, one that was originally responsible for the development and submission of each of the 3 individual plans. Those steering committees still exist. We evaluate proposals as they come in with regard to continued support, or either continued support for programs that are ongoing, or for new proposals that are being submitted to try to address one of those particular goals that we've indicated in the plan.
So
So
one,
we're not going to approve something or continue something that hasn't been shown to be effective to the best of our capabilities.
I just wanted to make one comment. One thing in here that may not be clear is that the data that we had from the prior equity plan, for example, it's not like we're just ignoring that and we're not using it. We're actually using that going forward, considering that data, looking at some of that as foundational work. And then, but as it says here on page 2 of 23, it's not required under this plan that we submit the data. And I think that's what Paul's saying. But we're considering prior data, and quite frankly, there's some adjustments that we're looking at making in the data collection process itself.
Yeah, we certainly want to try. Our goal is to streamline all the data collection so that when we're evaluating, well, first of all, we want to make sure that the initiatives that we have going on campus are aligned with each other and not competing with each other in any way. And we want to make sure that when we evaluate an initiative, we are trying to use as much of the standard, at least coming down from the state's, the Chancellor's office now, all the standard metrics as we can to evaluate whether we're being successful or not. And with regard to the equity plan, this is the first time that they also are trying to not only get colleges to use standard metrics, but all colleges use the same metrics. And this is the first attempt at really getting all of us on the same page with regard to how we're reporting. Because I think that when we were working on this, we found that prior to this year, there had been a lot of different ways that institutions had submitted their data. And so oftentimes we weren't comparing apples to apples when we looked at different colleges. And now we're really trying to use common data sets across the system.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the student equity executive summary, I get a far clearer sense of, you know, what was our baseline, what was our goal, did we succeed, did we not succeed? And that's kind of what I'm looking for when this plan comes back, rather than just text, that it tells us in the data way, did we succeed, or did it work, or not?
Yeah, certainly. And just for reference, with the Triple SP plan, the core services themselves are the metrics. Are we increasing the number of students that we're producing ed plans for? Are we creating more counseling visits? So those metrics are reported annually to the Chancellor's
Right.
office.
But as a trustee, that's
absolutely, yeah, happy
great
to
stuff
provide
to
that.
see.
Yeah, certainly.
That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Jarrell, for
welcome.
your questions, or sorry, you're answering all the questions. I think this is you know, because you're not on the ground seeing all the things, then this is, you read this and it's good to get clarification of high level of what this actually looks like. Craig, comment.
Not really a comment, a detailed question on page 8. It says goal number 8, and under progress, it's something, it uses this term, and flipping the classroom, and I have not a clue what that means. And it's really hard to interpret this one. I don't know what flipping the
Yeah.
classroom means.
Well, that's kind of teacher speak for using more problem-based learning in the class, less lecturing and more interacting, critical thinking.
Okay,
That's really
that's enough. It put me in the direction, but I had no idea what you're talking about. And I had one other question, but I think it went down to the next group. I don't know the page. Under Goal 4, there was a term used, and I hadn't encountered this term before, maybe because I'm not well enough read. I think it's an acronym, but it's was written like a word. UMOJA.
Oh, yeah,
Umoja Campus. I don't know what that is either. I'm sorry.
Certainly, Umoja is a program that is geared at increasing access and success for our African-American students. It is a statewide program, yeah, Umoja.
Okay.
Any more comments?
It was written capital letter and then lowercase letters. If I thought it was an acronym, it would be like all caps or, you know. I
That'd be a
didn't know.
good study session topic, actually. Dr. Chris Johnson is kind of leading the charge for our development of our Umoja program. And it would be something that we could talk about at a later date. Also, the flipped classroom concept is something that would be great for a study session as well. Both of those are good topics.
Jonathan?
Yeah. What's the status on the Student Equity Center? How's that going?
Yeah, it's going great. So we managed to be able to have, they haven't had their grand opening in there yet, but in the West Campus building, one of the rooms on the second floor, we've managed to be able to have that be a student equity center. We have hired a student program advisor to serve in there and be present most of the time. A lot of programming will occur out of there. So basically, we're looking at it as a place for cross-cultural events on campus to be able to occur. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Cool, excellent, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, I might as well do it now. Maybe I'm premature, but I don't think so. When I was reading through, you know, the goals, what we've completed and the ratings and a little bit past this, when we got to that next section, I saw a lot of verbiage under, and the verbiage I saw was like hire new to do this, hire a new person to do that, and that doesn't really bother me, but what I didn't see created a question in my mind, or caused me to question it. I didn't see any verbiage in there that says, you know, that said something like provide funding for something specific instead of just hire a new person. Now, I didn't see any verbiage that that said integrating staff, you know, because we're already doing some of these things like retraining staff. I just kept seeing hire new. Like,
I can give you.
I didn't like the sound of that after
Can I
a while.
address it? Well, those are actually addressing items that occurred in past plans. Much of the funding, both for mainly for SSSP and the student equity funding, hired personnel. I think if you look at the integrated budget that I gave you, you can see that about 75% of it is probably salary and benefits. So it goes to full-time people. We hired 10 academic counselors, numerous classified staff to serve as tutor center, to oversee tutor centers and things like that. So that's a lot of that. A lot of the money has gone to hiring those people, and they have been hired. Is the current status for many of those. What we're doing now, anytime a person separates from the district that was hired with any categorical funds, we are not automatically just approving the rehire of that position. That's our opportunity to look at, is this still a needed position in the right place? Could the dollars be better spent somewhere else? About 25% of the budget is used to support programming, and we have some ongoing programs that we support heavily through that. Express to Success is supported through that. Just last week or beginning of this week, I can't remember, won an award at the Chancellor's Office as a statewide example of an exemplary program. We fund STEM activities, tutoring, things like that. I mean, that's so a lot of the hiring was done in the past few years, and so I guess we continue to employ those people as part of our ongoing plan. We obviously evaluate the effectiveness of the programs they serve, and if those programs aren't proving to be as effective, then we can look at where these individuals can better serve our students.
Okay, that let me know that at least you're trying to, instead of just piling on more.
We are trying.
Thank you.
Recognize
The efficiency is not just in the classroom.
Understand.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else? Well, we read the 23-page report. Thank you to the staff, because this is a big undertaking. And I do have a lot of questions, but I will save it because I watched the Pathways video and I see how in the big grand scheme of things, this is all flowing in the same direction.
It is. We'll have much different conversations in the future.
Yeah, so roll call, Angie.
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Trustee Bloom?
Aye.
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Hasland?
Wake up.
Student Trustee Pambici?
Aye.
Thank you.
We'll wait a minute to see if we've lost Peter.
Peter?
I'm here.
So we're roll calling to approve item 8.1 that was pulled out of the consent agenda to approve the BSI CE Triple SP Integrated Plan for 2017-2019.
Trustee Hasland? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes. Item 11.1, resolution number 12, routine budget adjustments. Is there a motion to approve?
Can I motion to approve both resolutions?
Yes.
Motion to approve item 11.1 through 11.2. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Trustee Bloom?
Aye.
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Hasland?
Peter?
Trustee Hasland? Student Trustee Pambici?
Aye.
Peter?
Trustee Hasland? Well, I'll just vote, no vote. I don't know how we're going to do, well, that's all right. We'll figure it out.
Moving on to item 12.1. Welcome back, Mr. Dr. Jarrell. You didn't go far.
This is the Dr. Jarrell show this evening.
This is our report on guided pathways, and many of us had the opportunity to view the guided pathways webinar on December 8th. And unfortunately, because school was closed, I logged on. Fortunately for us, unfortunately for school.
Well, hello again. So we had originally scheduled, I can't remember initially when it was, on a study session to dive into a little bit more what are some of the issues that the state is looking to address really when they mount and want to fund this and push for this guided pathways initiative. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I alluded to before, the common data that we're going to start zeroing in on that lessens our reporting to the state, but also has been shown to be very meaningful. And I want to show you how you all can have access and gain access to the Chancellor's Office area where they house all this data, and show you a little bit about that. So whenever you you have nothing to do and want to see how we're doing and how we fare over time and how we fare relative to other districts, it's really a great resource. So I wanted to show you that and then talk a little bit about Pathways and how Pathways hopes to address this, all in prelude to asking for your support for our funding application for the California Pathways funding initiative. And you have already given us last semester, I think it was, your support as we applied to become one of the 20 colleges for the California Guided Pathways. That had no dollars attached to it. The state has a similar initiative now that they're making available to all districts that does have funding attached to it, and so that's what we're asking for your support today, is for that application, which is really almost identical to what we submitted before for the California Guided Pathways project, of which we have been to 2 institutes and on our way to our 3rd in a couple weeks, so it's been really good. So I'm comfortable with you asking me questions whenever. I'm also comfortable with waiting until the end. I know that time is kind of short tonight, so I'll just kind of get through this, and then we can address things as they come up as you want. Okay? So, as I mentioned before, we're trying to, or the state is really trying to identify for us, if you will, what are the most meaningful momentum points for students in terms of success, right? And we're measuring success in this regard as getting a certificate, getting a degree, transferring. We would hope that that transfer includes transferring with a certificate or a degree, but those are the kind of key things that we're looking at. And there are nationally recognized momentum points, if you will, that occur during different points in a student's career, college career, that are really closely linked with success. And again, success measured by completion of something, okay? And we're calling those, or what we've called those, are the California Guided Pathway metrics. They were based on a national model. We've adopted them for our California Guided Pathways project that we're part of, but we're also seeing that those are going to be the same ones that the state is going to use to evaluate our success with the Pathways Funding Initiative. They're all kind of sound similar, but these are the metrics that we're going to use. The good thing about them, and I know we've had a lot of conversations about scorecard metrics before, and we always end up with scratching our head over a few of them, and part of that problem is because they are a 6-year window. And if we're looking at being successful in something that we're doing now, and if we have to wait for 6 years to, I mean, it's really not something that's really that tangible. So the nice thing about the metrics that the state is really zeroing in on now, and we are here at this institution, is that these can be measured in a year or less. So we can be doing something now, and we can begin to see effects or no effects or whatever as soon as next year, because these are just in a year cohort. We're looking at a particular year cohort. And so that way, in that regard, they seem to be more meaningful to us as practitioners, because it allows us to fine-tune and change our methodologies in a more timely manner, okay? So here's a list of what they are, and I'll just be quick to kind of point them out, but it's kind of interesting. We identify early momentum. KPIs just stands for Key Performance Indicators. Again, something that indicates a student is likely to be successful 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. If they earn 6+ college credits in the first term, that's better than if a better predictor than if they had earned less than that. Even better is if they earn 12, and even better is if they earn 15 in the first year and even in the first term. So we know that, and we knew this all along, and Jeff based, and the foundation based a lot of the Promise program on this idea that we know students, the more engaged we can get them in their studies, and by that taking more classes, being part of extracurricular activities, the more likely they are to be successful. So many, many initiatives are centered around getting students to take more units. Again, considering their lives and what they have going on in their lives, but that's really kind of the goal, and we know that that is a measure of success. And in particular, if a student is going to finish in 2 years, we know that minimally they need to get 60 units in 2 years, so they're going to have to be completing 30 credits in the first year to be able to be on target for that. So these are ones that are early momentum within the first year, just looking at the number of credits they earn. The other thing we know that is really indicative of a student's success, and there's been a lot of attention on this, and not just nationally, but in the state of California as well, with regard to basic skills education and getting students to be able to complete college-level math in college level English as soon as they can. And the metric that we're going to use is within the first year. If a student cannot be successful in completing college level English and math in the first year, the odds are that they're going to have a difficult time completing something. And in fact, we often see many students that are successful and remain here for semesters taking classes, earning units, and then we see them drop out when they don't pass math or when they don't pass English or something like that. And so what is it about that? What can we do to encourage and support students in being successful in getting that math and English underway and being successful in it within the first year? Persistence. Since this is just a year metric, we're just looking really at persistence from fall to spring. So we know fall to spring persistence is important, but also fall to fall persistence is really important as well. So that'll be a metric that we're really interested in monitoring here on campus as well. College level course completion rates across the state are pretty steady, but what can we do to increase that? You know, if we're 74% successful overall, first year students in completing college level work, what can we do to make that 80% or whatever? And then lastly, it's interesting, but just getting students to attempt work, even though they're not successful in it, just getting students to attempt a reasonable load is a good predictor of their success. So attempting 15 credits in the first term and attempting 30 credits in the first year, which in practice is really being full-time, even though we often measure it maybe only as 12 units. We know that 15 is really what students need to be able to do to complete in a 2-year fashion if that's their goal. So these are metrics like this that we're being evaluated against when we do our Pathways project, when we go away to the institutes that you supported us on last semester. This is how we're going to be measured. The state has adopted this in addition to a few other metrics that I'll show you about in a second that they're also going to use. And again, the beauty of it all is, and this is what's really nice, if you could pull this up for me, Liz. What's really nice about this is that this allows us to monitor our own success. And so it's called Launchboard, CalPass Plus Launchboard, and you all can log on to it. There's the thing there. And you'll see that there are a lot of different metrics if you're interested in them. We also use this for a strong workforce. So again, we're really looking at finding a common place where we submit data and a common way that we measure. And then you click on Guided Pathways. You all will have to register as new users. I already am a user, so I'll just... Don't look. And then it will open up and allow you to look at this, and we don't want this to remember that. But you'll see that you can select the college, and you can find Santa Barbara somewhere here, and you can select the year. And what I want to point out is that what they have decided to use is first-time freshmen to college. So while a lot of this is true for any of our students, the cohort that they measure longitudinally over the year is anybody that came in the fall as a first-time freshman to Santa Barbara City College. So we know that's not everybody, so this isn't all 10,000 of our students in a particular term or anything like that. This is just the subset that were new freshmen, first time to college. Some of them are our local kids. Some of them are kids from out of the district, out of the state, would be in here as well. But you can see that our freshman cohort in 15-16 was 2,470. And then they just break it out. These are our metrics. For that year, this is the record for those students. And we don't have 16-17 data fully in there yet. I suspect it will be in there in a couple months because we've submitted it. It just hasn't gotten put into the launch board yet. And the other thing that's really nice about this, and this is what I'll jump into in a minute back to my presentation, is that they've built in a lot of filters that are very helpful for you. You can look at ethnicity. So if you're interested in how are we doing with gaps among different groups, you can see it broken down. This is percentage, or these are particular units or in percentage. You can see it broken down by group. And so we can really look and see, okay, have we made any significant changes in these year on end? And the other thing that's nice, and I'll leave you with this, is that you can look for benchmarks. And benchmarks show us where we are, okay, where our macro region, and our macro region is usually defined, for us it would be the sort of south central, colleges of the south central coast. It shows us what the statewide mean is, and then it shows us the top performer in the state. So if we're looking for something here, well, what is it about Irvine Valley College that they got their students to take 25 units or something like that? So we can start looking for best practices that are out there by doing this. So I encourage you, and I'm happy to, as needed, help you with this kind of thing, but it's kind of fun to just nose around on your own at some point. Do I go back down now? Here? Oh, you want me to? I won't close down the meeting.
So Paul, while you're doing that, I have a question for you. So what's going to happen with the scorecard data? Is that all going to go away and be replaced by the CalPass Plus?
I do think so. It would require legislative change. I mean, that's another one that's legislated for us, the scorecard. So as the Board of Governors works to identify better things for our system and works with the Chancellor's office, then that's the next step, is to work with the Board of Governors, work with the legislation to kind of get those legislative changes in place. Nobody wants to report on well, I don't want to say meaningless, but less meaningful data if we have something that's more meaningful like this. Yeah, so I would anticipate that would go away.
Thank you, Dr. Durrell. Any questions or comments for Dr. Durrell?
There's another piece of this. Are you going to put it in two parts?
Well, this is just, there's the action for the application, but this is still 12.1 based on.
No, I mean, there's additional data.
I'm ready when you are. To continue on with the presentation, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
so
you
far,
mean
like,
questions
do you
on the
think
first
so
part? I
far-
think I got one answered, which was, I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn here, but.
Yeah. Craig, question?
I have a comment. I'm really happy to hear about this emphasis on having metrics that you could compare to. I've seen, just in the 5 years there, I've seen these new programs come, and then, well, it's going to take a few years for us to tell if this works or not, because they didn't ever bother to figure out a way to. And we have a lot of data in storage, just like figuring out how to use that data.
Correct.
So that we could compare, and I really appreciate the emphasis on that. And I hope that you guys are looking at ways to exceed the average of what the state's looking for you to do.
We exceed the average in every category.
There you
And
go.
our top performers in the state, in many, but recognize we can always do more, and so that's where we're working.
Yeah, I like this being able to immediately know if it's working or not having to wait for 3 or 4 years. It's
Great.
very attractive.
Yeah, well, I can, more questions here, you want me to?
Marcia?
Well, let me just clarify a couple things. One was, I think you said in passing that our data includes all students who fit the criteria of first freshman in college, basically.
That is correct.
Okay, so including out-of-state and international, not just residents.
I'm not sure, I don't think it includes international because the reporting for this one requires a social security number. Yeah.
Okay, that probably would not be the case. Do we look at second year?
I'll confirm that for you, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Do we look at second-year cohorts? And what I'm getting at here is, I understand why the scorecard was frustrating, that length of time.
Right.
But the results that I see here on the 1 years are in some cases quite different than the results we had in scorecard, and particularly in the area of persistence.
Correct.
So when you looked at the FCMAT cohort of 9 colleges,
Yes.
in the scorecard, we were 8th or 9th. And yet here, in the first year cohort, we're doing really well. So I'm kind of pausing to wonder, are students doing really well at the beginning and then falling off?
No, you know,
Persistence
I
thing,
mean,
or what's happening?
No, it's a
We will- we will look into
group.
that.
They're comparing to everybody before, now
Yeah,
we're just
but-
in this one group.
Yeah, and I think also, zeroing in on these metrics here lessen the reporting errors that occur over a 6-year period. So I think what happens when you look at some of the scorecard data is that institutions over a 6-year period might change and code differently how they're reporting something at any particular point in time. And I think that that's probably part of the reason why the trying to get away from this 6-year window also is that this is looking at just a very point in time, right, with the cohort, and you're not having an opportunity to change the way you coded anything over that 6-year period that might affect them when you look at it this way. Now, having said that, I do think that it is vitally important that we pick up on what are the second-year metrics. And, you know, we look at these metrics looking within students that come in the first year. It's very easy for us to look at similar kinds of metrics because we know the cohort, right? I mean, we already have those students tagged. We know who they are, and they can be followed in that subsequent second year. And
Yeah,
I wouldn't doubt that that's coming down the road as well. Here, I think that this was easier for a first year to just identify them that way, rather than looking at second year metrics.
Yeah.
But I could see, I mean, certainly worthwhile for sure.
Seems important to me to keep looking
absolutely.
year by year.
Yeah.
And the other piece of it was I don't recall an ability to disaggregate on CalPAS by economic circumstances.
Yeah, you can't.
And
but
that troubled me.
I agree. I will say, though, that we are working in with our IR department to produce Tableau vizzes, if you will. I don't know if you've used some of our Tableau things that mimic this, that allow us to put in things that are important for us. And that BOG eligibility is one thing that we use a lot. And I think that is something that is a really worthwhile thing to take a look at, although they haven't identified that for us. I think that for us as an institution, that's an important thing to look at.
That's absolutely an equity issue for us, and it's very important because we know the BOG eligible success rates versus the non-BOG students. There is a gap, and it has not really changed over the last years that we've been tracking it, actually.
It's in here in a minute. I mean, it's about an 8% gap or something, so.
Yeah. And it's pretty,
or 11
pretty
something.
standard.
Very
Of course,
consistent,
obviously, we want to try to close that gap. But
So, other questions? So I'll just show you. You can look at this on your own and whatever. I just do want to point out, I'll just show you how I've got this organized. And I did drill in and pull out from the launch board data the colleges that were identified in FCMAT as being similar to us. And they used a lot of metrics that identified those colleges being similar to us, not really from an economic point of view, but from a student body point of view. So this really is a meaningful comparison because they've identified that these are institutions that have similar programs, similar students, therefore probably similar issues. So we can learn from looking at those other institutions as well. So you can see here how they fare. I've got Santa Barbara on the left in each one of these. I put in red the state mean, just so you can do a quick visual there for that. And green is the top performer in the state. You can see that as we work, I'll just kind of go through here, that for many of these, out of the 9 colleges that we're looking at as our sort of FCMAT group, we do perform at the top as that group, I think, in almost every case. These are just credits attempted. Here you can see, look at full-time status of our cohort. Now this is really, I find this one very interesting because I came from one of these institutions for a long time, Pasadena, and I've always felt that there were similarities between these two institutions. And then I looked at it, and I think we had talked about a different board meeting once before about how for first-time freshmen, right, so that's all we're looking at here for first-time freshmen, we have flipped that being mostly part-time students to mostly full-time students. Again, this is at 12 unit is what we're using as our criteria here. And we are quite a bit above the state average and not too far below the top performer. And that's pretty impactful there for that one.
certainly the Promise program would help with that.
You know, it's interesting, this does not include any Promise students because this was a 15-16 cohort. So what I'm anxious for is because when we look at the 16-17 cohort, that did include promised students. And so that will be, should even go higher. So we should see that go up. Yeah, that's interesting. That's when I first thought, oh, it's because of the promise, but this was prior to that cohort. Yeah. So there's persistence. Again, what's interesting for some of these also is to look at the lack of variability among some institutions. Also, I think that tells us some things as we work our way through there too. Fall to spring persistence. College level success. We fare pretty well. We're in the high 70%. What's interesting, that highest performer in the state at 88%, I think, I questioned that a little bit. I did a deeper dive into that. It's a very small rural school, very specific subset of programs. So, I mean, I think that there's, you know, something with that that lends to their success for that, is that they just have a very finite number of programs, a lot of career technical education. So, so that's that. So again, similarities there. When we look at developmental education, again, a huge gap between the state average and the top performers, which tells me something, right? So somebody out there's got something either figured out or doing something drastically different than the rest of us, right? And so it would behoove us to look at those things they're doing. I have a feeling that some of these data for these next few slides are going to become irrelevant as we move into AB 705 territory, where we have some now mandated requirements that we get students through college level math and English in their first year. We all should be at up there at the top moving forward, but we'll figure that piece out. But again, you can kind of see here, this is math completion here, successful completion of math. And this is again in their first year. So of that cohort, who successfully completed college level math in their first year? Didn't matter where they started, just did they complete a college level math class? Statistics, algebra, or higher for us. English, again, a wide variety in performance between top performers in the state and averages. Again, that tells me somebody's got something different going on. And lastly, completed both, right? Again, this is the real metric that we want to try to be successful at, is getting students through both math and English in their first year so that they can progress along in their degrees. But again, if you look at our cohort, even with these, while we recognize that you know, relative to top performers in the state, we have some areas where we could look. We do pretty well with our groups, but there are still some students that I think we could probably serve a little bit better if we could figure some things out. And that we're working really, I'm very pleased with the direction and the dialogue and conversation that's happening within the Academic Senate and also within assessment committees with our assessment coordinators, that really trying to seriously look at the fact that can we do something differently, and then if we're going to do something differently, recognizing that these students still need support, how do we provide them the support? How do we change that model? How do we flip that, right? To give them that support in a way that allows them to progress more quickly. And I'm very pleased with some of the discussions that are happening on campus around that. First, yes.
I was just going to say, I'm really pleased that we're discussing that, because if I'm reading this correctly, the statewide averages are really not very high for all of us.
Yeah, that's true.
We're in the 25%.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if I look at, if you
that-
look at this one especially, that they complete both. I mean, you know, you're looking at what is that 6% of across the state. That's the state average. So that means there are some that are obviously substantially below that, and that this picture here is exactly why we have the pressure from the legislation now. It's like, look, we've been funding lots of initiatives. We're not seeing the needle move here on these things. Let's really try something different. And you know, not only some of the legislation, although they didn't give us any solutions, they just told us fix it, and that's good. We don't want them to tell us what to do anyhow. But you know, I think that Guided Pathways is going to address this. This is a central theme in Guided Pathways. And as I mentioned, you know, we have a lot of conversations that if you would have asked me a year ago, would they be happening right now, I would have said probably slim. But they're happening, and they're happening with earnest, and people are really looking at this. And I should also point out the thing that resonated with our faculty when we looked at this was, if you were to look at this from a disaggregated point of view by ethnicity or BOG, that's when it becomes even, it's even more upsetting at that point, right? And so we know there are places where we can address some attention, and we're doing our best to make a difference there. First term, this is where I think we really excel is in some of these first term and first year momentum in terms of number of units. And again, speaking to the fact that we have, that high number of students or high percentage of students that are registering for full-time status. So you can see here, again, we're close to the top there. We are the top one there in the state at 12 plus credits in a term. 15 plus credits in a term. I can't recall the institution at the top, but I think it was up in Foothill De Anza or something like that. And they have a special program where the bulk of their students enter in and take 15 units initially. So we're faring well, but again, recognizing that, I think really not only do we want to be the top performer in the state, and we certainly have the capacity to do that, we want to perform at a much higher level than the top performer in the state is right now. And I really feel good about a lot of the initiatives that are going on campus that will really move this needle to some of those. And there again is 24 plus credits in year one. That's spectacular. It's still, a little more than 30% of our students getting 24 credits in year one, but that's pretty good in community college land where many of our students are part-time and they have complicated lives and are working, and so we're doing our best to even increase that even further. Okay. So those are the metrics, and again, what you can look back at prior years, you can see, have we moved any in the past? I think there are 3 years worth of data on the launch board, and to get an idea longitudinally, have there been changes? We've been fairly flat. There have been a little bit of changes here and there, but we've been fairly flat. The state's pretty flat, honestly, in all of these metrics. And again, that's the push for let's turn us on our head and do something totally different. And as I mentioned, this is one of the things, I didn't want to spend the time to go through each one of these disaggregated, but I did want to mention a couple things, and it really is worth mentioning. So I pulled these off of Tableau Viz, and we're working, as I said, to create some that are more consistent with those that we're working on there with the Chancellor's office. But this is from our program review. These are all of our students. So all of our students, if you look at all of our students in this particular term, fall 14, 15, and 16, these were our success rates, just percent successful in course. Did you get a grade of C or better? Did you withdraw in the class, or were you unsuccessful? And unsuccessful is a non-passing grade would be a grade of D or F. And you can see that we've been pretty flat. These are good data. I mean, 70, 73, 74% success rates are very good. But again, it's been pretty flat, and then the questions are, can we raise that? What can we do to raise that a little bit? And in particular, if we look at that disaggregated. So I just wanted to point out, and again, these are the things that really motivate this campus. This is how, when our faculty and staff look at these things, this really motivates us because it is part of, I think, not only the core mission, but part of the fabric of Santa Barbara City College to really address things like this. This has been something that has been very important for this institution for a long time. And you can see that while there have been some changes slightly, you can see that this disproportionate impact, they use the word achievement gap. I don't particularly care for that, and I'm really lobbying for something different because achievement gap to me blames students. They're not lacking achievement. It's that there's something we're not doing to support them. So maybe this is a support gap or something. So I'm not really into student blaming, but we do see that there is an impact on certain groups of students. And that impact has been there for years. And we're trying, and we're really doing everything we can to try to address that. And you can see here that if you look at our 2 largest populations on campus are Hispanic and white. And if you look at those 2 populations, there is a significant gap between those 2 populations. Even though the gap, when the state asks us to compare equity gaps, they ask us to compare with the grand average. And that really doesn't tell the real picture. The real picture is where is a group relative to the top performer, if you ask me. And you can see our top performers there. We want to try to elevate those students to be able to provide them with the services they need to be able to be successful in those classes. Because if you look at our top performers, they're performing at over 80%. And there's no reason why all of our students shouldn't be able to do that. And so we're really working to address that. You mentioned socioeconomic indicators or socioeconomic effect. Here is our BOG waivers. Here, if you just ask the question, so we know the average is 74% or so. If you just ask the question, does it differ if a student is on a BOG waiver which is the Board of Governors fee waiver. Now it's going to become the College Promise, what is it? The California Promise Grant or something. We see that, yes, if a student does qualify for that, so if they are of a lower socioeconomic income, that they don't perform as well. And we know their lives are more complicated, and you know, we really should be looking at ways to address those needs that are there to allow all students to be able, again, to perform at that 80% level. If we have certain ethnic groups that can do it, and we have certain socioeconomic groups that can do it, all of our students deserve to be able to do it, and that's one of the things that we're really working hard to try to address. And I'm very proud of all of the recent grant initiatives that we have gotten have simply been just to do that. How can we work to raise the level and get everybody up to that high level? Okay, so that brings us to guided pathways, and why I'm really here today to show you, to talk about this is we're asking for, again, the board's support in our application to the state for pathways funding. And we've had a lot of talk about pathways, and if you haven't had a chance to see some of the webinars or nose around on the Chancellor's Office website about guided pathways, a lot of rich information there. And this is kind of the, you know, it's chuckle, but it's kind of true. Just the other day, I had a friend of my wife's called me, and my daughter is trying to register. She can't now. I mean, have you all heard that, right? and these are people that have, or you may have done it. I've tried to do it too. Man, the hardest thing ought to be just getting the students here. But when they're here, it ought to be easy. But it's tough, and it is a challenge. We recognize it, and sometimes no matter how hard we try, it's really, really hard to move the needle. So hence the Guided Pathways movement is that, like, we're really trying to take the maze out of all of this and add a little bit of framework to it. And that's really what the Guided Pathways movement is about, if you will, is really just trying to provide some structure to something that is currently unstructured. I'm sure all of us, when we went to college, probably had more structure than the California Community Colleges system have. I don't remember I was handed, you take this, right? Insert one class here over the period of 4 years, right? I mean, we had much more structure. So that's really what we're trying to do, is to give more structure. There are what are recognized as 4 pillars that are for success in guided pathways, clarifying paths for students, just using proper language to make it easy that they understand what they're doing. How do we get them on the path? How do we keep them on the path? And while they're on the path, what are the things that we can do to make sure that they are learning something? What are those measurable things? Because at the end of the day, we're really preparing them for something else, and that something else we're preparing them for ultimately transfer, but again, ultimately a job, a career. And those are the things that we're trying to help them with. We feel that one of our foundations, if you will, or that we're really anchoring all of these pillars on, is that foundation of equity. That's really important to us, that we evaluate everything that we're doing in that light, and that should be really one of our guiding efforts, is to address those gaps where they exist. So just to be clear, there really are 3 different kind of guided pathways efforts you've probably heard about. There was a national effort a few years ago. There were 30 colleges selected nationwide. This was privately funded. There were 4 total colleges in California that were chosen to be part of that initial project. The success of that project, the early success, indicated that this is something more of us colleges should be able to participate in. So a group got together in the state of California, again privately funded, to work on rolling this out in the state of California. And they requested that they had funding for 20 colleges to participate. They sent out a request for proposals. You supported our proposal. We were chosen, and we are now not halfway done. We're into the first semester, but we're getting ready to go on our 3rd institute, and these institutes are 3 or 4 days long, and they're just designed to provide us with strategies for carrying out the conversations and implementation and development of pathways on our campuses. So that's the second one there. And then in the latest, last year's budget, the current year's budget, there's money or funding for a California Guided Pathways project at the entire state level, and that's an award program. It's state, run by the state, it's funded by the state. It is a $150 million one-time investment in the system. All 114 colleges may apply, and if they are successful in their application, they will be given a particular allotment and that allotment will last for 5 years. You will be given a particular dollar amount each year for 5 years to fund the development and exploration and development and implementation of pathways on campuses. And that's the application that you have in front of you here in the next item that I'll ask for. This just summarizes our Pathways project that we're part of, being one of 20 California community colleges. We are going to our third institute, I believe, in February, and that's, again, Pathways to Transfer Employment. We have completed the first two, and they have been very, very good, and a lot of good information present. And also a lot of good dialogue among colleges. We're all experiencing very similar things. The timeline for that one is a 3-year timeline there, as you can see. The award program, $150 million, the allotment for Santa Barbara will be at least $1.4 million. Divided up, it'll be about $300,000, a little less than $300,000 a year for 5 years. And it's really to fund professional development, it's to fund implementation, visiting other sites, anything we can do to fund the development and dialogue around pathways on campus. Obviously that number, that's a minimal level of funding depending upon who all applies. The $150 will be partitioned out accordingly. If some colleges don't apply or aren't approved, then that award would potentially change. And there are 3 requirements. We have to attend a workshop. We did that already as a team. We have to submit the Guided Pathways self-assessment. That's what you have in front of you. It has already gone through discussion and support with the Academic Senate. It was originally due the end of December, but because of our canceled board meetings, we reached out to the Chancellor's office, and they graciously allowed us gave us an extension until the end of January to be able to get this given all the conditions that have happened. And then in March, I believe it is, the end of March, we have a multi-year work plan that is due. So basically, we're applying for the money. We are now going to spend the next 3 months, well, 2 months now, developing a multi-year work plan, and that work plan is how do we plan to spend the money and implement Guided Pathways. A lot of that will be centered around a lot of the work we're doing for the other Pathways project. And then once that is submitted and approved by the Chancellor's office, the first year's funding, which would be this current year's funding, would be released in April. So that's what we're asking for, like a little bit of a story about, I think, why it was so important to not only the governor, but our new Chancellor, Oakley, that this be really prominent in at least his mission and plan for the California community colleges, is that, the data are pretty stark. We need to really think of something differently. And this is different, it's logical, it seems to make sense to me, and I think that it will be pretty impactful for our students.
Big thank you to Dr. Jarrell, the entire Guided Pathways team. Dr. Priscilla Butler has been absolutely stellar at leading all of this with the Academic Senate. None of this can happen without the Academic Senate, so thank you so much for your leadership. This really is, and I've said it before, and I think, those of us that have been in this world for a while probably would agree that, this is probably the most substantial thing that I've seen in 30 years in education.
Agreed.
Paul, you've been in the business. Priscilla, you've been doing this for a long time. We see all of these, the next big thing or initiative or whatever. This really is going to have some significant change and impact on student success. It's very exciting.
Do you guys have any more questions?
Yeah, it's very encouraging when I first found out about it and watched you guys, knowing you were working on this, because over and over, and I've done a little bit of reading since I got on this board and watched the inequity in the system and the students that we miss and that don't get, and how many of them graduate and what are the odds, and yeah, I did take statistics. And I really feel like I'm so tired of hearing about the next big thing, but the graphs never change. And they spend money, and lately they've been spending money with no accountability rules, for K-12. And this does promise for real. And so I'm really happy to hear that, you know, you want to do this and
Oh,
you're excited about it.
Yeah,
and-
very much
And you
so.
really believe that it's going to make a difference in those graphs.
Yeah, and I think that accountability piece that you mentioned is going to be real. It's going to be something that, you know, moving forward, we're going to have to be held accountable for, you know, the money that's allocated to us, the way we're spending it,
Yeah.
and the metric. Is it meeting outcomes? What is it doing to outcomes? And so, you know, I think that, you know, like I said, a lot of these things I see aligning and coming together, and I think that's now we're going to be poised to be able to make a difference because we can leverage all of these things against each other, and it can be really meaningful.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else? Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Durrell and
welcome.
Priscilla and the team. This is a lot of work, and as much as we're interested in the quantitative data, don't want to end this presentation without letting you guys know that we recognize the qualitative data that doesn't come to the board, that you can't put on graphs, and most significantly, the kindness and the grace that the faculty has shown our students with the end of the term, and those are the metrics that don't make it on a slide. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So moving on to item 12.2, is there a motion to approve the application for the guided pathways?
I'll move to approve the application.
Jonathan moves. And second? Marty second, Marcia second. Roll call.
Trustee Croninger?
Aye.
Trustee Nielsen?
Aye.
Trustee Bloom?
Aye.
Trustee Gallardo?
Aye.
Trustee Abud?
Aye.
Trustee Hasland?
Peter?
Wake up, Peter. Maybe he took a nap.
Student
No
trustee-
nap.
No nap? Darn. Thought I was the only one.
Well, but I'm watching you, so don't take a nap. I vote yes.
Student trustee Pambici?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 12.3, procedure and timeline for filling the provisional trustee position. So this is for our presentation. Who's giving this presentation?
So we have Mr. Joe Shoulder here, our college legal counsel, to kind of go through the process of a provisional trustee position. I can let you know that we have 5 applications for this position as of this afternoon. And so we need a process and we need to understand what this is all about. So Joe?
Well, good. I'm not sure how this works, so I'll fiddle around with it, but we're going to go through the process. It may seem complicated, but in truth and in fact, this happens quite a bit on local school boards, and we've never had, you just press the, thank you very much. Okay. It happens quite a bit on local school boards, and everybody is managed to do the things that they need to do. And we haven't had an issue or a problem yet, so I anticipate with your board, things will go smoothly as well. So the first thing we have to keep in mind is that we do not have, or there is a specific amount of time that we have to fill the vacancy, and it's 60 days. The statute doesn't give us any more time. There's no ability in the statute to ask for more time because we've had issues with the fire and the flooding or emergencies. It's a deadline, and that is the deadline that we need to stick with. If we do not appoint a board member within 60 days, then your board loses the power to do so, and the superintendent of schools is required to go through this election process. Again, in at least my memory with all of the local school districts, that has never happened. But we do need to keep in mind that we've got a certain amount of time to do this, and it's 60 days. Okay, so you've got 5 people so far, which is good, and the requirements are here. There is a mistake on number 3. I wrote down 21, but it's actually 18. So if you have someone who is youthful and interested on being on the board, God bless them. You know, I mean, if you're 18 years old, you certainly qualify. You can't be an employee of the district, and you need to live within the trustee district we're talking about, which I guess is number 2. One thing that you might be thinking is, well, how long do you have to live in the district? And the policies of the board, I looked, there is no requirement. And the Supreme Court of California has looked at a number of cases where there is a requirement. And what the Supreme Court has said, sometimes you see that you need to live in the district for a year. In one I saw, you had to live for 5 years. And the Supreme Court has said, no, you can't do that. There's a number of constitutional rights that are affected by that. So 30 days is as long as you can go, but we don't have any requirement. So the 30-day requirement is where if you were to have a requirement, then you are limited to 30 days. You can't have a year, you can't have 5 years, you can't have 6 months, it's 30 days. We don't have one, so I guess in theory, somebody could move in the day before. But again, it's hypotheticals. It typically doesn't happen. So the procedure is as follows. We need to solicit candidates. There isn't something in the statute that requires us to do so in a specific way. It sounds like you're already doing a pretty good job of it because you've already got 5 people. You may want to put an ad in the paper, you may want to put something online, you may want to post things in the local area so that people know. Because the more candidates you have, the better chance you have of getting someone who is good. So then you've got all the applications, and then the next question is, well, now what do we do with those applications? Well, typically what you could do, you're not required to do this. I mean, the entire board can look at all the applications, and it's all done in open session. I mean, and you can look through and say, well, you know, is this person eligible? Is that person eligible? But typically what you do is you would have a, less than, we have a 6-person board now. So you would have 3 or 2 members of the board would go through the applications and would make sure that they're at least 18 years old, that they live within the district. In the prior slide, it talked about how, you can't be disqualified from holding public office. There's a set of obscure crimes, oddly enough. They're very obscure. So even if you were convicted of the kind of normal crimes that we tend to think about, you can still run. So they're, bribery of a public official and kind of bizarre and odd things. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. And in fact, the CSBA has a kind of a suggested application form. They don't even ask about that. So in any event, it's nothing to really focus on. But again, you might want to have a committee to go through the applications and also to come up with a list of questions. Again, with respect to the list of questions, there's nothing in the statute that says that you need to ask each applicant the same question. You don't have to use the same list of questions. In practice, we have found that where boards ask different applicants different questions, it ruffles the feathers of certain people because they think so-and-so got a softball question and they asked me something difficult. So again, it's up to you. There's no legal requirement, but practically speaking, the ones that seem to have less issues and problems have a standard list of questions, and the applicants are asked those questions the same. Then the asking of the question. So essentially then you have all the applicants have to come to the board meeting. And it's not done in closed session. It's done just like we are right now. And each of the applicants stands up and you can ask them the list of questions, or if you decide that you want to ask different people different questions, that's perfectly okay as well. We've had questions in the past, well, it's not fair if you're the first one, because then you hear how people answer the questions, and I'd like to be last. You decide who goes first and who goes last. You are not in a position, unfortunately, to do what like we do in court with a witness who has to testify and exclude them until it's their turn. Instead, you can ask, and it would be the courteous thing to do for people to wait outside and then to be summoned in. But if they decide, nope, I'm not going to do that, I want to sit and listen, then there's nothing that you can do about that. So then we get to the voting. So then again, it is in open session. The discussion about who do you think is good, who do you think would do the best job, who do I like, it's open session. And that's awkward. People don't like to do it. And I guess I don't blame them. But unfortunately, or fortunately as the case may be, the Brown Act requires us to do it in public, in open session. Then the last step, of course, is to vote. And it, like everything else that you do, or substantially everything else you do, it's just simply a majority vote. So if you have a tie, then you're going to have to keep voting. So hopefully that doesn't transpire. If some school boards do step number 4 first, and they let it marinate so they can kind of ruminate on what they think about the people, and some decide that they're going to have the interviews, and while things are fresh in their mind, they just vote at the same meeting. You can do what you'd like to do. Again, there's no requirement at all that you do it in 1 meeting, you do it in 2 meetings. It is all the same. Next, now it's technical, and the statutes do need to be followed. So you make the appointment, and within, it's slide 7, 10 days of making the appointment, we need to actually post something, which it seems odd, which essentially says there was a vacancy. Of course, we've already filled the vacancy, and we filled the vacancy, and this is the name of the person with whom we've filled the vacancy. And then we need to publish that notice in the newspaper. I guess you can do the Independent, I guess you could do the Santa Barbara News Press, I don't know what else we really have, and then post within 3 public places in the district. Now that's what the statute says. It doesn't say within trustee area 2, but certainly, however it is that you post them, certainly one of them ought to be in that district. And then what happens is members of the public have 30 days after the date of the, 30 days after the posting of the appointment to decide that they're not pleased with the appointment that you've made, and ask the superintendent of schools to call a special election. That has never happened, ever, in school experience. Now, perhaps in the city or something of that nature, on the county, it doesn't happen. So it's another one of these things where things are in the law, but it's really not worth troubling yourself about until it happens, because the chance of it happening is very, it's unlikely to happen. So, the person that you appoint is sworn in, and immediately upon being sworn in, they are the board member. with all of the powers and responsibilities that you all have. There's, I guess, perhaps a subtle point, which would be, well, if we pick somebody at the meeting and we swear them in immediately, and then we post our notice, and then somebody calls for the special election, are the actions that they've taken between the time that they've been appointed and the time that there's the call for the special election, are those valid? They are. So the statute specifically notes that once you're appointed until somebody calls for the special election. And we've had a number of questions about this. So just to put it kind of in concrete, Mary Ann's spot will be filled through the November of 2018 election. Then whoever it is that you've appointed, if they decide that they still like this and they want to run, other people can run as well, and in that election, they will run. Whoever it is that wins in that election will serve until, I guess it's November of 2020 or thereabouts, and then in the November 2020 election, a person will run for a 4-year term. So the person that gets appointed has to run in, I guess, 11 months, 10 months, and then they will need to run again. And that's the end of it. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But again, typically, the process runs very smoothly. If there are, I hope I'm not doing that.
Peter.
If there are issues and problems that arise, we are here to help.
Marcia,
Yes.
question?
Just to clarify a couple things, I believe the 60 days runs from January 1, when Mary Ann's resignation was effective.
Correct.
And two, we have the next agenda item, which is a decision whether the board itself would want to call a special election, and that is a possibility, but wasn't in your discussion there.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm not saying we recommend it, just that that's a decision point that we put as the next agenda item, so.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone
good,
else,
Joe.
Marty?
Thank
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Marty and then Peter.
Oh, we've got Peter.
Tried to sneak away, Peter. You didn't see me.
I have a,
I'm sorry, but I do have a couple of questions, but I think somebody else was called on first.
She yields to you, Peter. Go.
Okay. First question has to do with the idea that somebody doesn't have to live in the district more than a day. And I understand the legal notion of that. But that would not prevent me as a trustee from taking that into account when I cast a vote, would it?
No, it would not. That's a very good point.
Okay. But the questions that we developed, must they be published, or are they held in confidence until we use them?
You don't actually have to tell people in advance what they are. They're for your use. So they're not published. People don't know in advance what it is you're going to ask.
Yeah, the league.
All right. Finally. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna tell you that, and you already probably know this. The California Community College League has a list of suggested questions that you can choose from, modify. You don't have to use them, but to kind of give you some idea of some good things to ask.
Yeah, I'm aware of those, and that underscores the old adage that you don't have to reinvent the wheel because somebody else has already done it.
There you go.
My other question has to do with reference checks. Is that permissible?
Well, I've never heard of a reference check, but the statute doesn't say that you cannot do so. So if a board member on their own decided that they wanted to go and investigate somebody's background, I don't see any problems with that. I mean, obviously, you can't do it as a board.
Good. That's interesting, because if we were to go out and hire somebody for a job, an important job, a high-paying job, a low-paying job, one of the first things we do is to prior to making the appointment, is to do a reference check.
Well, I know that, and in fact, you know, I mean, if you look at some people who are elected to public office, it maybe would be nice if we did reference checks. But in truth and I mean, so again, there's no mechanism that we have in the provisions of the education code to allow us to do those reference checks. But what I'm suggesting to you is that if a member of the board decided that that's what they wanted to do, again, it can't be done as a board, but if each member of the board decided that on their own they wanted to do a reference check because they wanted to know more about somebody, I don't see any problem with that.
Okay, good. We will start a trend here. But thank you very much for your input. I appreciate it very much.
Good.
Marty? Yeah, we have 5 applicants so far. What is the deadline on that? I may have missed our, for turning in an application.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was
today?
What time? 4 o'clock? 4:30.
Whoa, so
You
this
have
is it?
5.
Okay, that's good to know. I don't know why I missed that. The other thing is the cost of having a special election. Would that fall on City College then, if we had an election all by ourselves?
That would fall on us, and it's very expensive.
Expensive.
I mean, you're talking $250,000,
Yeah.
$300,000 in some cases
Yeah.
for some of these special elections. So they can be very
I think that's
costly.
important for us to consider, because we don't have it budgeted, but it's just really expensive and awkward in some ways.
Yeah,
'cause
again,
it's
I
our-
mean,
us
I've
alone.
I have never, ever, ever heard of any board saying, let's do a special election for, I guess, a number of reasons.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, not the least of which is the expense. But in addition to that, this gives you the chance to interview people and go through the process. And again, I think the law is set up in a way to put the power in you in the first instance, maybe thinking that this process is more likely to result in you coming up with someone who's going to be a good board member than leaving it to the public at a special election.
The one pitfall that I've noted over the years is that sometimes the board will say, whether it's a city council or a school board or whatever, will say, we'll only select somebody who promises not to run in the next election so that they can have this free appointment. And push comes to shove, almost every time, the person just falls in love with being in that office and just decides to run. And there's nothing, I don't think, that you can do to stop them. Am I correct on that? 'Cause
Well, I mean, there's certainly nothing in the statute that says that you can or you cannot. It doesn't even, I mean, it doesn't even kind of think about that. But I would think to myself that to put a condition on that is probably not a prudent thing. And I mean, I guess it could be subject to legal challenge.
No, I completely agree. Because whoever you wanted to appoint, you have to feel like this is somebody who would run and who, you know, who might have more years than just this one.
Correct.
Okay.
Right?
Your answer to Peter's question brought up another question for me. If the board as a whole can't check references, but individuals can, we have a perfectly, in my opinion anyway, a perfectly excellent human resources department. Can we avail of ourselves of our own district's administrative prowess?
I mean, again, there's nothing in the statute. I would really prefer that you did not do that, because then what it seems, and maybe they would prefer it as well, but then it seems like you're acting like a board.
They get paid. We
I
don't.
understand that, but you're acting like a board, and as a board, you are instructing the Human Resources Department And it's, again, probably not the most prudent thing to do.
Do you mean just doing simple things like vetting contents of a resume? Or
Well, again,
qualifications?
I mean, I understand all these things in theory. In practice, I will tell you, although, I mean, this seems like, you know, a fine idea, but in practice, I've never heard of this happening. I mean, typically what happens is that the people that run for these offices, or at least ones that might get the, the serious consideration of the board, are people that are leading figures in the area, people who may have been involved in education or, you know, shown themselves to be public-spirited people. So...
Okay, our HR department is off the hook. Sorry, girls.
Again, I mean, if you're 18 years old, you can apply. But I mean, in truth and in fact, the people that wind up on these boards, typically speaking, are people that are known, and they're not just kind of some random person. So maybe that's why I've never heard before of reference checks.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2.4, the board's decision regarding vacancy of trustee Dr. Marian Kugler. I guess we can do a roll call, and you can say, call a special election or make an appointment, and then we'll know where we stand, whether we want to call a special election or make an appointment. And it's kind of twofold, because then if we make an appointment, then we want to decide full board or ad hoc. So we'll roll call a special election, or make an appointment.
Trustee Bloom?
Appointment.
Trustee Abud?
Appointment.
Trustee Gallardo?
Appointment.
Trustee Croninger?
Appointment.
Trustee Nielsen?
Appointment.
Trustee Hasland?
Appointment.
Student trustee Pambici?
Appointment.
So for the appointment, ad hoc or full board? And you can say ad hoc or full board. Roll call.
Trustee Croninger?
Full board.
Trustee Bloom?
And maybe I
didn't
want to
get to-
back up.
yeah,
Let me back up, and then
Yes,
maybe
please.
we want a discussion on the benefits of either or. So,
I would think that whoever, if we're gonna, like, just say it would be next week when we see them, and it would seem there's some basic things. I mean, is this person a U.S. citizen, or, you know, I mean, it seems like one person could just go look through the
Vet.
5 and see if they're all over 18 and they're registered voters and they're, you know, that kind of,
Checklist.
just a real simple,
Just to check for minimum qualifications.
yeah, the factual.
Yeah,
so
the
that you know
factual
what's
test.
coming to
Yeah,
the table.
I don't quite think we need a whole ad hoc committee unless somebody else thinks we do. I just think one person could.
Kind of what I had in mind.
I was thinking,
I hate
when
to interrupt.
God is
I'm not able to get through it any other way. But my suggestion is that we do have an ad hoc committee, or even an individual. But my reference to reference checks really had to do with sort of a basic, very minimal sense of who that person is.
Okay, so then what's on the table right now is to decide whether we want to have one individual just do a checklist to see if they meet the minimum qualifications to even apply. And then the second would be whether we want, no, then that's it, whether they want to come to the full board or
Just
ad
one
hoc.
comment, if I may.
Yeah.
We've got an application that each of these individuals has filled out. And in that application has information about the individual, about their background, about their interest in why they want to do this, and so on and so forth. I'm just throwing out here that the idea of exploring motives or some kind of information beyond that, you know, may be problematic to a certain extent. You might want to just stick to the application, what they've presented to you. This is their best foot forward, supposedly. So it's just a suggestion.
So we're thinking that they read the application, if they applied, they meet the criteria. So if they come to us and we review them, it's because they're qualified to.
Well, I'm not saying that we shouldn't check the reference. I'm just saying in terms of, I'm not saying that we shouldn't check the minimum qualifications. We should do that. What I'm suggesting is that beyond reference checks, you know, having somebody do that may be more than we want to get into.
Okay, so do we want, yes, Mary?
I also think that we should have an ad hoc committee, and I don't know how many people, 2 or 3, to write questions.
Right now would be 2, because we don't, right?
Because there's only 6.
Yes, there's
of
only
us.
6.
Yeah. Is it, we still have a
Just
quorum
2 less than
4.
half. Well, like 3's, I mean, you're, right?
3's company.
3's comfy. 3's strong.
Making this harder, it seems to me, and I don't care if we do an ad hoc committee or not. My only concern is, okay, how much time does that eat up? Do they have to do this and then we have to wait for a board meeting to tell us? Or if we have 5 applicants, do we still have to advertise and wait till we get more and wait a certain period of time?
No.
Because if we don't and we have 5 applicants, why don't, they each submitted information about themselves. I think as human beings and as trustees, we owe it to those people willing to serve to at least read what they put forward, what they put forth. So it would seem to me the most logical and also easiest and most cost-effective way to do this is that we should each be able to read. There's only 5. It's not like there's 500. Right. We read them, okay? And then we make nominations and we vote. And so the next board meeting, it's over with. Just the way I see it, if that's not possible, then it's not, but let's just do it.
I agree that we should all get the applications and review them between now and the next meeting, but I think we do need to interview and ask questions. I wouldn't feel comfortable going off of an application. I just did an interview process for hiring people, and the applications and the interviews were starkly different. The people who had really good applications didn't end up getting hired because the middle of the pack had really great interviews and they were much better. So I wouldn't feel comfortable only going off reading applications and voting. So I think let's make a committee to get some questions and ask them next week or the meeting after.
Good point, Jonathan. I keep relating, I can relate back to when I hired people, employees, and whatever. And I don't know that we're in that this is the exact same ballgame because we have, I would think, a list of pretty experienced, qualified people. And, you know, it shouldn't be that difficult for us to make that decision. But I do respect what Jonathan said, and if we were actually hiring an employee, then yes, I would, that's what I used to do, you follow it.
Craig, it's more like a marriage.
I agree with you.
I think you want to ask questions too. I agree with Jonathan. The question of an ad hoc committee for me, has to do with what are those questions? And related to that is when are we going to interview? I mean, our first thought was next meeting, but that is next week. So if folks want to go beyond what the league offers for questions, I think that makes it the first meeting in February. But we have to do it before the end of February or we're out of the 60 days.
Peter, did you have another comment?
I guess I might be the only one here that doesn't see a need.
I agree with both Craig and Jonathan. I think we take the shorter route because we are getting close to the deadline. We make it simple. And what I had in mind, but didn't articulate it well, was that at some point if we do have an ad hoc committee, it determines only basic qualifications. You either meet them or you don't. And Anthony's point about basing our judgment on what is being presented unless there are serious red flags. And I say this not having seen any of the applications, not knowing who has applied. I really haven't. So, and then I think Jonathan's point about we need to really interview these people. And I'd be in favor of doing it next week if we possibly could. I wouldn't mind looking at the league's questions and being part of a small group that would amplify those or modify them in some way. But I don't think this is rocket science, and I think we can do it quickly.
Okay, so then what's on the table right now is an ad hoc committee that would check the eligibility on the 4 things that were presented, in addition to the questions. So that at the following meeting, those applicants get invited. We all have their applications. We ask the questions, and then we decide at that same meeting? Okay.
And did
We could do that, or we could call a special meeting for exclusively that one purpose.
After the interviews to make the decision?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that kind of where our comfort zone is. I mean, I think the suggestion was hinted at that we might want some time between the interviews and a decision-making moment. And calling a special meeting for, say, the week after wouldn't be utterly inappropriate.
Peter, I don't think you need a special meeting because we've got 3 meetings before we run out of time. We have also a retreat, so you're talking about a lot of meetings there.
I want to pick this person before the retreat.
Then I was misinformed or misinterpreting what was left to us.
When's the retreat?
I'm happy to be in. Thank you.
15th.
So Angie, the applications that came in, if next meeting, next Thursday, we are going to be reviewing them, this is going to be part of the board packet, so aren't the applications going to be live on Friday for us to view? Or Monday, whenever?
Or we could do it Monday, yes. we could
So,
do it Monday.
so the applications are going to be visible to us because it's going to be part of the board packet. So,
So we'd have them this coming Monday?
so right now, whoever decides to be on the ad hoc committee will be able to see them, check them. But regardless, all of us are going to see them as soon as the agenda is posted, either Friday or Monday.
And did you want to have some basic questions?
Yeah, the ad hoc committee would be charged with those 2 things, the eligibility on the 4 items that were presented, in addition to making sure that we have the questions, either the league or modify those. So are we okay with creating an ad hoc committee for questions and to check off criteria? Guess we can roll call on that. Is that what you guys, or is everybody, you're good? Our decision is that we're going to take the applications, we're going to create an ad hoc committee, and that ad hoc committee is going to check criteria and get questions.
Well, good.
Yeah, okay.
This is a snap.
So who would like to be part of the ad hoc committee? Jonathan would like to?
I think Peter
And
wanted-
Peter? Peter, you'd like to be part of it?
Caltrans and the creek don't rise willing.
We can get Jonathan to you.
We can email, too.
FaceTime, Skype.
Telephone.
It is really a serious question. I mean, this kind of works where I'm sitting here by my phone, but and I'm looking at all of your smiling faces, but you can't see mine. And there is some loss in I think in integrity of the meeting. So I would much prefer to be present. So if those of you who have any sway with Caltrans can do your thing, I'd very much appreciate it.
Why don't we just pick an alternate? I'll serve as an alternate if Peter can't attend the meeting or we can't get to Peter.
We don't need to have a physical meeting, Peter and I. Like, we can email to.
Sure, sure.
For Skype.
Preparation, yes, absolutely. The interview,
I thought he just said no.
I'd like to be there.
So Peter, are you okay with the modality by which you will communicate with Jonathan via email, Skype, phone call?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, can I get a motion to, do we need to approve this? It says action. We kind of took action. We're
It's
done.
action, yeah.
It is action, so we'll roll call. So what's on the table is to appoint Jonathan and Peter to review applicants and bring back some questions to us for the following meeting. Roll call. Yes?
And
Did
for
somebody make a
interviews then?
And for
following meeting,
interviews at the following,
25th?
this next meeting. Yes, but, yeah. so that they can be present for our retreat.
Okay, well, that's close enough.
Okay, roll call.
Hey, trustee Croninger,
Aye.
trustee Abud,
Aye.
trustee Bloom,
Aye.
trustee Gallardo,
Aye.
trustee Nielsen,
No.
trustee Hasland,
Yes.
student trustee Pambetti.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, staff. You know, looking at the 4 pillars, clarifying the path, enter the path, we needed time to clarify the path you all have been on. And, and now we've entered the path, and now we're going to stay with you. So thank you. Before we adjourn to closed session, Peter, are you still with us?
I'm right here.
Yes, and I know, I mean, any requests for adjourning our closed session?
Peter?
Well,
we-
I guess I would have preferred to do this in private or in person, rather. But as you all know, I had I lost my wife on December 28th, and it occurred to me to think about the fact that we are all essentially volunteers to do this job, but we're not alone in doing this job. We have the support of our partners who have to put up with a lot, and sometimes I think we forget about them. And it seemed to me that it might be appropriate to adjourn today's meeting in at least recognition that each of us has a partner who's been supportive and cares perhaps as much as we do about the direction of the college and what we do about it.
Thank you. So with that, we'll adjourn honoring our spouses and our significant others that help us serve in this capacity and take this on as with us to fulfill this wonderful mission. Thank you, Peter, for always bringing these to us. So with that, we'll adjourn to closed session until we convene. Thank you, you guys.
Thank you.